Chapter 130. Emperor Rank Attainment. Little Master, this one has been stuck at the 8th grade of the spirit rank for a long time, unable to refine a 9th grade or even a king rank pill. I wonder if you could give me some advice. You haven't even refined a 9th grade spirit rank pill yet. What are you doing here? This one has already refined a king rank pill, but for 2 years, I haven't been able to refine a king rank pill. With Long Chen's advice, Louis Yi successfully refined a king rank pill into a king rank pill, causing an uproar on the 7th floor of the pill pagoda. Many people rushed up to Long Chen and asked him excitedly, hoping to find a way to break through. Enough, all of you go down. Don't make a fool of yourself here. Lu Zhonglan looked at this group of disappointing fellows and suddenly became angry. The people in the surroundings all laughed mockingly, but none of them moved. They actually still surrounded Long Chen in the middle. Long Chen saw this scene and couldn't help but smile bitterly and helplessly say, "How about this? When this one's battle is over, I'll personally answer everyone's questions and exchange ideas." Hearing this, everyone nodded. Seeing Lu Zhonglan's ugly expression, they quickly retreated and ran downstairs. Lu Zhonglan was also very helpless. Although these fellows were not young and were all spirit rank 8th or 9th grade alchemists, once they encountered an opportunity to break through to the king rank, no one was willing to fall behind. In their eyes, if Long Chen could really teach them how to refine a king rank pill, even if it was only a king rank pill, it would save them a few months or even years on the path of alchemy. Seeing everyone leave, Lu Zhonglan shook his head and laughed. "I've let Brother Long see a joke, but I have to thank you today. Otherwise, you would need at least a few months or even longer to become a king rank alchemist." Lu Zhonglan's words were sincere and Long Chen had a good impression of him. At least he didn't ask for the method to refine a pill, nor did he secretly learn it from Louis Yi. Just this point alone showed how new he was. "Tower Master, you're too polite. Since I've agreed to take Yi as my disciple, I'll naturally do my best. Moreover, with Yi's talent, if she has a deeper understanding of formations, it's not impossible for her to have a breakthrough in a short period of time," Long Chen said. Lu Zhonglan was overjoyed when he heard this. Could he still have a breakthrough? Long Chen nodded and replied, "I still need to discuss this matter with teacher Yanli." Yanli quickly arrived at the 8th floor of the pill tower. When he saw Yanli's bloodshot eyes, Long Chen could not help but laugh. Before he left, he had given Yanli a lot of detailed explanations of formations. It seemed that she hadn't slacked off in the slightest after so many days. Although Yanli's talent in array formations couldn't compare to Louis's talent in alchemy, the difference wasn't too great. If Yanli was willing to help Louis, then Louis's progress in alchemy would have a qualitative improvement. Long Chen shared his thoughts with Yanli, Lu Zhonglan, and Louis Yi. Lu Zhonglan's face immediately flushed red with excitement. After so many years, his understanding of his daughter could be said to be thorough. Apart from her extraordinary talent in alchemy, everything else was like a blank piece of paper. If it weren't for the fact that arrays could be used to refine pills, she would probably never come into contact with them in her entire life. If Yanli was really willing to assist Louis, then it would bring about an unprecedented change to her future. Lu Zhonglan calmed his emotions and asked Long Chen, if the two of them work together, what kind of alchemy cultivation can he achieve in the future? Lu Zhonglan didn't know why he asked Long Chen. In his eyes, he and Long Chen were both king-stage alchemists. If it weren't for Long Chen's ability to crack pills that convinced him, he wouldn't even let Louis enter Long Chen's tutelage. However, he felt that Long Chen could give him an answer. Emperor stage isn't difficult. God stage is within reach. Long Chen's short words caused Lu Zhonglan's body to suddenly tremble. His heart was filled with shock as he asked in a deep voice, "Are you serious?" Long Chen smiled faintly. In this place where king stage alchemists were respected by the entire country, an emperor stage or even god stage was something that no one could even imagine. However, with Louis's talent and her ability to crack pills, although she and Yanli's array formation had shackles, reaching emperor stage alchemy wasn't a problem. As for god stage, it would depend on their luck. "I have never lied in my life." Hearing Long Chen's words, Yanli and even Lu Zhonglan fell silent. They were clear about the weight of Long Chen's words. If they could really achieve it, their futures would be changed. Only Louis looked at them with her eyes wide open. When she heard that she could refine a higher-level pill, she was overjoyed. She jumped up and hugged Yen Li's arm in her arms. She smiled and said coquettishly, "Big sister Yen Li, please help me. He wants to refine a higher-level pill." Yen Li looked at Louis with a trace of doting in her eyes. These days, she had taught Louis some simple arrays and was quite fond of Louis's innocent personality. However, she knew that once she agreed, she would be bound to Louis for the rest of her life. Longchen naturally saw Yen Li's dilemma and said, "You can think about it for a few more days. In fact, there are many benefits for you. I just happen to have many spirit herbs that I need to refine. The two of you can give it a try first." Lu Tsanglan, who was standing on the side, was very experienced. When he heard Longchen's words, he naturally understood what he meant. He quickly said, "Teacher Yen Li, don't worry. This is unfair to you, but as long as you are willing to help me, my pill tower will provide all the pills you need for cultivation. Not only that, I will also satisfy all your requests." Longchen thought to himself that since things had come to this, he could only see if Yen Li and Louis could reach an agreement. He didn't say anything else. He turned to Louis and said, "The two of you help me refine all the pills and spirit herbs in here in the next 2 days. You must succeed in refining them within 3 days. On the other hand, you can also practice with each other before making a decision." Yen Li and Louis put all the spirit herbs Longchen gave into their storage rings. Then, Yen Li glared at Longchen and said, "You make it sound so nice. Aren't you just trying to be lazy?" Only Louis's eyes lit up when she heard about the pills. She quickly dragged Louis to the alchemy room. Longchen smiled. Then, he took out paper and ink and wrote down all the arrays he needed to refine the pills and handed them to Yen Li. If the two of them could successfully refine all these pills within 3 days, he was confident that he could rely on these pills to directly reach the peak of the spirit martial realm. At that time, with the strength of 36 dragon elephants, he wouldn't be afraid even if he was at the 4th level of the divine transformation realm. Chapter 131. Pill Tower Sensation. While Longchen was in closed-door training, Xie Jioshan had not slacked off in the past few days in the General Zhenyuan mansion. He had put in a lot of effort for the military exercise in 7 days. "General, Longchen is not the only major general in this military exercise. There are many others. Isn't this too difficult? Won't it attract criticism?" A lieutenant general in armor looked at the plan in Xie Jioshan's hands and couldn't help but remind him in a low voice. Xie Jioshan's hand paused, and his face suddenly darkened. He said coldly, "Censure? This military exercise will be Longchen's death. Let's not talk about whether these plans can kill him. Even if he passes the military exercise, I will not let him live after 7 days." Xie Jioshan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He knew that if he couldn't kill Longchen in 7 days, then Longchen, who was a major general and a guest of the third prince, who commanded 8,000 soldiers, would be extremely difficult to kill. The lieutenant general immediately fell silent, not daring to say anything else. Xie Jioshan snorted coldly and asked, "What are the movements of Longchen and his 8,000 soldiers these days?" Xie Jioshan recalled how unbridled Longchen had been in the general's residence that day, and he felt uneasy. "General, you worry too much." Although Longchen's battle prowess was extraordinary that day, he knew nothing about soldiers. It is said that after he selected 8,000 soldiers, he did not stay in the barracks for a single day. He directly returned to the imperial capital and went to the Pill Pagoda. Xie Jioshan frowned when he heard this. He secretly thought that Longchen's performance that day could be considered outstanding. Could it be that he really knew nothing about marching and fighting, or did he have a backup plan? After pondering for a moment, Xie Jioshan shook his head fiercely. He thought to himself that he had paid too much attention to Longchen. Longchen was born in a remote place, so it was understandable that he did not know anything about marching and fighting. Moreover, no matter what, there was no way he could win the battle of reinforcements in a few days. Only death awaited him. Compared to Xie Jioshan's plans in the General Zhenyuan mansion, Longchen knew nothing about the outside world. As for the 8,000 soldiers, he had completely forgotten about them after giving them some instructions. Right now, all he wanted to do was break through to the next realm. As a sovereign in his previous life, he knew that no external force could surpass him. Only by being strong oneself was the absolute truth. Apart from the 24 spirit herbs he had obtained from the national treasury and given them to Lu Yi and Yenli, Longchen still had 8 king tier elixirs in his hands. These king grade pills had all been obtained from the blood-devouring formation. 7 of them were 7th grade king grade pills that had been used to open up the dragon elephant acupoint. In terms of value, they were not as valuable as the other pills in the national treasury that were useful for the divine transformation realm. However, these pills were like sweet nectar to Longchen. Apart from these 7 pills, the last one was a life-saving pill of the 8th grade of the spirit rank. 7 7th grade king tier medicinal pills are theoretically enough for me to reach the strength of 36 dracophants. If my luck is good, I should be able to break through to the divine transformation realm after Lu Yi and Yenli have successfully refined the crack pill. Longchen muttered to himself. Longchen closed his eyes and threw the king grade elixirs into his mouth one by one. As soon as the 7 king grade elixirs entered his stomach, Longchen's body flickered with spiritual light. The king grade elixirs on his body suddenly became dazzling. There were a total of 28 king grade elixirs. In other words, as long as he opened up 8 dragon elephant acupoints, Longchen would reach the perfect spirit martial realm according to the primal chaos golden code. Only then would he have the opportunity to step into the divine transformation realm. Longchen, who had the body of a great emperor, did not seem to be afraid of the violent spiritual power in the king grade elixirs at all. He directly swallowed 3 king grade elixirs in a row. On the other side, after Longchen went into seclusion, Lu Yi and Yenli worked together to refine king grade elixirs. The king grade elixirs they refined were all around the 2nd grade. The formations they needed were at least the 7th grade of the spirit grade elixir. These formations gave Lu Yi a headache. Even the 5th grade of the earth spirit grade elixir used to refine the falling star elixir was mostly set up by Yenli. This time, the formations needed to refine 7 2nd grade king grade elixirs were all set up by Yenli. On the 2nd day after Longchen went into seclusion, the 2 of them began to refine king grade elixirs. Lu Tsanwan, who had been waiting outside the elixir refining room, seemed to have noticed the relationship between the 2 of them. Of course, he also understood that the king grade elixirs and formations were inseparable. I must get Yenli and Yi together. In this way, Yi may not reach the god grade, but she will definitely reach the emperor grade. Lu Tsanwan thought of Longchen's words and immediately made up his mind. Come, send all of Yenli's information to my room. On the 3rd day after Longchen went into seclusion, Lu Yi and Yenli sent all the king grade elixirs in. This time, the king grade elixir refining room caused quite a stir in the pill tower. Since then, the name of Longchen had been completely spread in the pill tower. The news that pill fanatic Lu Yi had a young master around her age also gradually spread. In just 3 days, he had refined 7 2nd grade king grade elixirs. This speed of improvement made everyone look forward to Longchen. One had to know that Lu Yi had just barely broken through. Now, she had improved again. This was simply unbelievable. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. The area in front of Longchen's elixir refining room was already packed with people. It is said that the great master will come out of seclusion today. I have been shackled at the 9th grade of the spirit grade for 3 years. Today, even if I have to go bankrupt, I will ask for a way to break through. This old man stepped into the king grade 10 years ago, but I haven't made any progress since. I have never been able to refine a 2nd grade king grade elixir. Now, at Yi's age, she is. Sigh. Although Yi's talent is rare, 7 days ago, she could only refine a 2nd grade king grade elixir. Under the guidance of this young master, she directly melted it down and became a king grade elixir. 4 days ago, she refined 7 2nd grade king grade elixirs under the young master's name. This is simply unimaginable. the entire 8th floor of the pill tower was filled with people. One figure after another squeezed to the entrance of the pill tower. Even Lu Sanlan couldn't do anything about this scene. Lu Yi had stepped into the king grade in a short period of time and made successive breakthroughs. This caused Long Chen's reputation to soar. Rumble. Just as everyone was making noise, an explosion suddenly came from the elixir refining room. The sound of the explosion was like thunder. Everyone was shocked when they heard it and immediately quieted down. Then, palm-sized cracks actually extended from the elixir refining room, a heart-palpitating aura swept out. Countless spirit-grade and king-grade alchemists who had been waiting for Long Chen turned pale and retreated in panic. Crack! In just a few breaths, the entire elixir refining room shattered. Countless cracks instantly turned it into stone fragments. Lu Sanlan walked out of the crowd and his pupils suddenly shrank. This elixir refining room was specially refined with high-grade celestial stones to support the formation. Under normal circumstances, even a soul formation realm cultivator wouldn't be able to damage it, let alone a spirit martial realm cultivator. What the hell is going on? What is this guy doing inside? Lu Sanlan asked in surprise. Chapter 132. Spirit Rank 36. Long Chen could not help but smile bitterly as he looked at the collapsed darkroom behind him. Seeing Lu Sanlan walk over, Long Chen greeted him with an apologetic expression. Lu Sanlan's footsteps suddenly stopped, and his expression changed slightly when he saw Long Chen walk past. Only then did Long Chen realize that the ground beneath his feet had sunk in with every step he took. After taking a deep breath, Long Chen's feet finally returned to normal. Lu Sanlan was secretly shocked. Just a casual step had such power. What kind of cultivation technique was Long Chen practicing? President, I'm sorry. Something went wrong during my training. Long Chen said apologetically. When Lu Sanlan saw that the entire room behind Long Chen had collapsed, he laughed and teased, "It's my pill pagoda's quality that isn't good enough." In fact, Long Chen didn't expect that a casual punch from him after his breakthrough would be so powerful. Now that he had reached level 36 of the spiritual martial realm, he had successfully awakened the power of 36 dragon elephants. With his own strength, his single punch was close to 40,000 pounds of force. If that was all there was to it, it would only be equivalent to the battle prowess of a cultivator in the 4th layer of the divine transformation realm. However, Long Chen discovered that when she punched out, there was a trace of origin power flowing through her entire body. That was why his punch was so powerful. This origin energy was extremely mysterious. It was incomparably powerful, yet it was extremely rare. Shockingly, its source was the mysterious region within his mind. The fog in the mysterious area had almost completely dissipated along with the increase in his strength. The rough outline of the area could be vaguely seen. According to Long Chen's speculation, once he stepped into the soul formation stage, the source of the elemental energy in the mysterious area would appear. "Little master, you have to help me." This old man became a 9th grade spirit rank alchemist at the age of 40, but until today, I haven't even successfully refined a single king grade pill. While Long Chen was thinking, Lu Sanlan didn't say anything. Suddenly, an old man rushed out from the side and hugged Long Chen's leg. As he howled, snot and tears streamed down his face. Everyone sighed, and those who originally wanted to go forward to ask Long Chen also couldn't help but stop. This old man could be considered one of the oldest in the pill tower. He was now 82 years old. 40 years of not making the slightest bit of progress on the path of alchemy made one sigh. Long Chen frowned slightly. The old man's actions made him feel very uncomfortable. However, when he saw the light of hope in the old man's eyes, which were filled with despair, he shook his head and sighed. "Get up first. If I can help you, I won't refuse." The old man's vitality seemed to have been shaken, and he quickly stood up. Lu Sanlan also looked at Long Chen gratefully. This old man's actions were too abrupt. Everyone's eyes were burning with passion, as if there was a divine fire burning in their eyes. A person who hadn't made a breakthrough in 40 years, could it really be possible for him to become a king stage alchemist? With talent, who could break it? Why don't you just refine the simplest pill you can find? It's best if you don't take too long. I still have some urgent matters to attend to. Longchen said. The old man nodded and hurriedly walked into the nearest alchemy room and began to refine pills. The earth fire was raging, and the spirit herbs were fragrant. This is a king stage jade spring pill. It only needs 5 spirit herbs. Although it's a king stage spirit herb, its function is very simple, which is to quickly restore one's vitality. Although this pill is simple, it is indeed a king stage pill. Moreover, I heard that Elder Zhou has refined this pill no less than 100 times, but he still hasn't succeeded. AI, this is also due to talent. If it's not in your life, don't force it. Everyone was discussing spiritedly. Only 5 spirit herbs were needed to refine the pill, and the refining time was extremely short. It only took less than half a cup of tea's time to refine it. Of course, it was also related to Elder Zhou's technique. As for the refining method of this pill, he was able to grasp every single detail at his fingertips. However, Longchen's expression was not good. The moment the old man stopped, he said in a deep voice, "There's no need to open the cauldron to test the pill. This pill is useless." Elder Zhou's face suddenly turned pale. He had experienced this scene countless times, but every time, his heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. No one cared about the ups and downs of not making any breakthroughs in the past 40 years. Countless people rolled their eyes and ridiculed him. Lu Zhongwan could not help but shake his head. Elder Zhou had asked him many times, but in the end, he was powerless. For example, he did not have the slightest problem in refining the pill, and even Lu Zhongwan did not dare to say that he could do it. Perhaps this was the aptitude of one's body. If it could not be reached, then it could not be reached. Little Master. Can you see where the problem is with the pill? Elder Zhou asked tentatively, as if he was a drowning man. Everyone immediately shook their heads. Under such circumstances, who could help him? Longchen frowned, but his eyes did not fall on the cauldron. Instead, he kept looking at Elder Zhou. Finally, he said in a deep voice, "There's no problem with the pill. There's also no problem with the refining method. The problem lies with you." "Me? What problem do I have? Is it that so-called aptitude? Talent? I don't believe it." Elder Zhou roared. Longchen coldly snorted and said, "If I'm not wrong, you've been cursed by someone." When this person was refining the pill, Longchen relied on the inheritance of alchemy and did not find any major mistakes. At the very least, the pill should not have become a waste. With this method in the old man's cultivation, he could have refined a king-grade pill. However, at the last moment of completion, the pill became a waste pill. Longchen also used his powerful divine sense to capture the strange power of the rules. He had seen this power in his previous life. It was an extremely strange power in the world. However, the power of the curse in front of him was very weak. Otherwise, it would not have been just a waste pill. Elder Zhou would have died a violent death. Curse? When everyone heard Longchen's words, they all had strange expressions. Attributing this matter to something as illusory as a curse was too much of a joke. Only Elder Zhou's face was filled with shock. He staggered back dozens of steps and immediately cried out, "Senior, please save me." Seeing the old man like this, Longchen did not say anything more. Seeing that it was getting late, he said, "The power of the curse is not strong. Otherwise, you would have died long ago. It would not have destroyed the pill you refined every time you had an obsession. If I'm not wrong, the source of the curse should be the item hanging around your neck. Isn't that his wife's item? Could it be that his wife cursed him? No, when his wife died, wasn't it more than 40 years ago? Could it be? Elder Zhou suddenly realized and hurriedly took off a blood-red jade token from around his neck and smashed it. He immediately rushed out of the crowd with a face full of regret. Longchen shook his head. If this person really knew his mistake, his advice today would not be in vain. He then turned around and walked out of the pill pagoda, ignoring everyone's gazes. After Longchen left, only a few hours later, everyone witnessed the birth of a king great alchemist. The entire Pill Pagoda was in an uproar. Chapter 133. 3 stages of military exercises within the imperial capital, in the imperial palace. The current emperor of the Black Dragon Empire, Qin Qing, coughed repeatedly, causing a few old men to hurriedly walk over. "How much time do I have left?" Qin Qing took a pill from the old man and swallowed it. Her face immediately regained some color. The old man shook his head and sighed. He didn't say anything and only stretched out 3 fingers. 3 more months? That's enough. Come with me to watch the military exercise today. I'll let you see the little guy who can break your devouring blood formation. Qin Qing said with a smile. The old man nodded again, and the 2 of them walked out of the hall. A moment later, a golden carriage drove out from the imperial palace. Outside the imperial capital, at the barracks. At this moment, a group of 8,000 people was extremely eye-catching. This was because all 8,000 of them were heavy armored cavalry. Which major general's soldier is this? Isn't it courting death to participate in the military exercise with only armored cavalry? A young man in the uniform of a major general was leading a group of men and horses. He saw this strange scene from afar. Such a scene was not limited to only one place. Everyone who passed by this place and watched from afar were discussing spiritedly. There were even people who loudly ridiculed him. The 8 Kiliarchs wore heavy armor, and their faces were as black as the bottom of a pot. Why isn't that brat here yet? All of the teams participating in the military exercise have already left, and we're the only ones left. A 1,000-man commander couldn't help but yell. One of the older ones also shook his head and said, "It's fine if it's a little late, but the things he left behind are really strange. These days, not only did we re-engrave all the patterns on all the armors, we also specially practiced the battle formation he left behind, but it was completely useless. Once we participate in the military exercise, won't we become a joke? The way I see it, this brat is completely ignorant, treating marching and fighting as a game." Another Chiliarch shouted. At this moment, a voice was heard. "Talking about your general behind his back is not something a soldier should do." Longchen was already standing more than 10 meters away from them. The 8 Kiliarchs were speechless. It had to be said that these 8,000 soldiers could be considered well-trained. They did not show the slightest bit of sloppiness even under the scorching sun. Seeing Longchen arrive, the 8 Kiliarchs were not happy, but they did not dare say anything. If they angered Longchen and got him killed, it would not be worth it. Have you all completed the tasks I've given you these past few days? If you haven't completed them, you've disobeyed orders and will be beheaded. Longchen stood in front of the crowd and said indifferently. The slightly older Chiliarch gave a military order and respectfully replied, "General's orders have all been completed. The 8,000 heavy cavalry soldiers have all been reorganized and the unknown formation and battle formation have been engraved according to your request. We are waiting." Hearing this, Longchen did not say anything more, as if he had a card up his sleeve. 8 Kiliarchs led 8,000 soldiers towards the location of the military exercise. To the north of the imperial capital, one would arrive at an area that was specially used for military exercises after traveling for less than 10 miles on the official road. This place was called the 100-Mile Valley. As the name suggested, this place was a sunken valley that spanned for hundreds of miles. The valley was surrounded by continuous mountain peaks, but the peaks of these peaks were very smooth. At this moment, there was a flow of people. After Longchen and the others arrived, they entered the valley from the left side. "General, you don't have to enter the valley first. Go to the 3rd peak, there will be specific tasks for this military exercise." Longchen nodded and walked towards the 3rd peak. The valley and the mountain peaks here were all built by the people of the Black Dragon Empire. There was also a specially built staircase to the 3rd peak, so it was not strenuous to walk. When Longchen arrived at the 3rd peak, he was slightly surprised. The first thing he saw was Qin Qing and the other princes. Even Oyezi was among them. "Greetings to His Majesty, greetings to the princes. Long Chen said indifferently. The first prince sneered and said, "Third brother, you're quite arrogant as a guest. Could it be that Master Ouyezi can't see you?" Before the third prince could explain, Long Chen stared at the first prince and Ouyezi, who was not far away, and said with a smile, "I really don't see this person." When Ouyezi heard this, his face turned red. He was standing between the princes and Qin Qing. How could Long Chen not see him? These words were only to tell everyone that Ouyezi was not in Long Chen's eyes. "Brat, don't be so arrogant. If there's a chance, I'll spar with you. Do you think you can compete with this old man just because you broke the devouring blood formation by chance?" Ouyezi shouted in a deep voice. Long Chen's expression did not change. He replied, "Of course I'll keep you company. Who is this brat? He actually dares to spout such arrogant words in front of Master Ouyezi. This person really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Master Ouyezi is a genuine king-level formation master. How can this brat compare to him? This guy is an idiot. Didn't you see the troops he just brought in? Those 8,000 heavy cavalry soldiers on the road are his." The surrounding princes and many generals who had come to participate in the military exercise all looked at Long Chen. Some people even said that he did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Ouyezi's reputation in the Black Dragon Empire was extremely high. Most of the formations in the empire were handled by him. But now, a young man who was not even 20 years old actually dared to spar with Master Ouyezi in formations. This was simply courting death. That's enough. Even if you want to spar, let's wait until after the military exercise. Why did Xie Jioshan choose such a place this time? Bailey Valley seems to be a designated place for the military exercise. Qin Qing stopped everyone's discussion. A person in armor hurriedly bowed and replied, "That's because the number of people in this military exercise has exceeded the previous ones. There are a total of 20 major generals, and the total number of soldiers is close to 30,000. Qin Qing did not mind. He just waved his hand and announced the tasks of this military exercise. The general in armor immediately raised his head and announced word by word. It turned out that there were 3 stages in this military exercise. The first stage was to attack the Beast Tide. The second stage was to face off against the 2 armies. The third stage was to defeat the enemy with fewer troops and cut off all means of retreat. Everyone was in an uproar when they heard this. Even Qin Qing, who was sitting upright and still, could not help but frown. The difficulty of this military exercise was too high. In the past, ordinary military exercises for major generals would end with just attacking the Beast Tide. It was very rare for 2 armies to face off against each other. But this time, there was a third stage. Chapter 134. Unfair Military Exercises. 30,000 people had already entered the arena. After the major generals learned about the tasks of the 3 stages of the military exercise, they returned to lead the soldiers one after another. Within the Hundredly Valley, including Long Chen, there were altogether 20 major generals. However, within the valley, Long Chen's soldiers were exceptionally conspicuous, because their numbers were several times that of the other major generals. Not only that, but every one of them was a heavy armored cavalry, giving off a strong visual impact. However, it was precisely because of this that it attracted a lot of discussion. In the eyes of the public, a single type of soldier did not conform with common sense. Isn't this military exercise a little too difficult? There are actually 3 stages in a row. This is too unfair. Isn't there usually only 1 round in the past? It's said that the increase in difficulty this time is all because of that Major General Long Chen. I don't know how he managed to obtain 8,000 armors this time. It's an amount that a lieutenant general can command. Don't worry. I think the difficulty of the 8th floor will be increased. Otherwise, with our numbers, we won't be able to pass the 3rd floor. Also, he's the one who started the chaos in the General Zhenyuan mansion. Many of the soldiers were discussing animatedly. They had some opinions about Long Chen. Let the military exercise begin. On the peak, the general doctor in front of Qin Qing shouted. The major generals who were participating in the military exercise immediately got into formation and prepared for battle, each of them ready to go. 20 groups of people continued to travel from the north to the south from the entrance. After traveling for a few miles, they saw that the originally endless valley was gradually separated by huge rocks. There were exactly 20 of them. Look, there are stone tablets at every boundary. It turns out that the beast tide this time is different from the previous military exercises. They are separated. Everyone could not help but heave a long sigh of relief when they saw the stone tablets. If they were to face the beast tide together, then the danger level of the beast tide would be difficult to resist. Now that they were separated, there were still 3 stages, but the difficulty was correspondingly much lower. The expressions of the 8 Kiliarchs behind Long Chen were extremely unsightly because the tunnel in front of them was extremely wide. It was at least 10 times wider than the other tunnels. This meant that the beast horde they were facing would most likely be much stronger than the other teams. One of the Kiliarchs' face was ashen. He couldn't help but take a step forward and ask Long Chen in a low voice, "Major General, are you really the guest elder of the third prince who caused a ruckus at the Jinyuan general's residence and took the heaven roll in one fell swoop?" Everyone's faces darkened when they heard this. Everyone knew that the General Jinyuan mansion was the one in charge of the military exercise. If that was the case, they would definitely die today. Long Chen stared at the person who had spoken and said coldly, "You're right. Not only that, I also killed Xie Jiushan's son. Is this true?" The 8 Kiliarchs were in an uproar. Their faces were filled with fear as they took a few steps back. With such a deep hatred, how could they still have a way out today? In fact, it wasn't just the few of them. Even the princes on the peak knew that today was definitely a disaster for Long Chen. At the very least, Xie Jiushan wouldn't let him off so easily. Long Chen looked at the 8 Kiliarchs' fearful faces and couldn't help but frown. He then snorted coldly, "What, are you all afraid? Want to run away? According to the military rules of the Black Dragon Empire, if you run away now, the only path left for you is death. 7 days was too short." Long Chen knew that no matter what, he wouldn't be able to gain the trust of the 8 Kiliarchs. That was why he spent all his time on cultivation. However, the drawbacks were starting to show. The 8 Kiliarchs' faces were pale. They felt that encountering Long Chen was the biggest mistake of their lives. Clang clang. Roar. At this moment, a deafening bell rang. Immediately after, an angry roar resounded throughout the valley. After the loud roar, a tsunami of roars followed. Then, the ground shook and the rocks bounced as if there was an earthquake. The first trial has begun. The bell rang 3 times. Each ring represented the beginning of a trial. In an instant, all the soldiers were ready to go. The heavy cavalry was in front, followed by the infantry, and then the crossbowmen. Long Chen looked at the Kiliarchs who were ashen-faced and shouted, "These 7 high-grade weapons are for the 7 strongest of you. As long as you do as I say, the 3 trials today can be easily passed. As for the rest, it has nothing to do with you. If someone really wants to kill me, even if it's Xie Jiushan, I won't let him go back." Long Chen urged his beast forward. The giant rhinoceros mount also seemed to feel the enormous pressure and roared. The 8 Kiliarchs looked at Long Chen as if they were looking at a madman. They couldn't believe that Long Chen actually said that he wanted to kill General Xie Jiushan. The 3 trials of the military exercise could be easily passed. Everyone felt the tremors under their feet getting stronger and stronger. The air even began to smell. They felt that besides killing Xie Jiushan, it was the most ridiculous thing they had heard today. But the 8 also knew that Long Chen was right. Now that things had come to this, they could only fight. Otherwise, they would die. After all, there were 8,000 of them. They could only hope that 100 of them would be lucky enough to survive the 3 trials. However, as they looked forward, the majestic beast tide suddenly scattered. Hundreds of demonic beasts surged forward, each of them several meters tall. Their hard leather armor flickered with a dark green afterglow under the scorching sun. Formation. The first trial has begun. If you don't want to die, obey the order. Otherwise, kill without mercy. Longchen shouted coldly. On the peak, the many princes and generals, and even the country's ruler, Qin Qing, couldn't help but frown. They stared at the general representing the General Zhenyuan mansion and asked in a low voice, "What's going on? Why is that team's tunnel so wide, and the number of monsters passing through at once is far greater than the others?" Many people knew in their hearts, but no one said anything. They watched as the monster tide from the bottom of the valley was driven away in a frenzy. Then, after passing through the valley, they split up at the entrance of the tunnel and rushed along the tunnel to the other teams. The tunnel Longchen was in was much wider than the others. Therefore, the demonic beasts that had already gone crazy were recklessly rushing in. Not only that, but the tunnel was also very wide. The demonic beasts that entered Longchen's tunnel were all huge in size. This also meant that their ranks were much higher than the other demonic beasts. How could everyone not know that today was the day that Longchen would die? The general stepped forward in fear and hurriedly said, "General Zhenyuan said that this team has 8,000 people. Naturally, the difficulty will be increased. As for the others, I don't know." Chapter 135. A powerful battle formation. The third prince's words did not make sense. Everyone could clearly see that the demonic beasts charging towards Longchen's group were at least of the 5th level of the spirit rank. With such a huge demonic beast tide, it was really difficult to rely on just 8,000 heavy cavalry to charge through. Formation. At the same time, the people on the peak suddenly heard Longchen shout. There was no trace of fear in his eyes. With Longchen's order, the 8 Kiliarchs and 8,000 soldiers behind him knew that at this moment, they could only meet the enemy head-on. Silhouettes moved swiftly as 8,000 people formed a formation in the tunnel at an extremely fast speed. The 8,000 heavy cavalry were in a battle formation, ready to go. Longchen immediately nodded. Although these Kiliarchs had some opinions about him, they had seriously completed the task that he had given them. Longchen's figure moved and stepped into the formation, standing 1/3 of the way behind the 8,000 people formation. At this moment, the other tunnels began to fight one after another. However, everyone on the peak of the valley could see that while the pressure on Longchen's group increased, the pressure on the other tunnels decreased. What kind of battle formation is this? On the peak, everyone stared blankly at Longchen's 8,000 soldiers quickly forming a formation in a short period of time. From top to bottom, it looked like a sharp sword. I've never seen this battle formation before. However, this kind of formation is definitely not enough to stop the large demonic beasts. The disadvantage of the heavy cavalry fighting alone is too great. Everyone's voice had not yet faded when they suddenly saw a dazzling divine light coming from below. When Longchen stepped into the back of the formation, a divine light shot out from under his feet and circulated around everyone, including the demonic beasts under their feet. In an instant, the 8,000 heavy cavalry soldiers were like puppets that were strung up by a string. This puppet was in the shape of a sword, and there was a dazzling divine light around it. Charge! The expressions of the 8 Kiliarchs changed again and again, and their eyes revealed a look of horror. In the past few days, they had practiced this formation thousands of times. However, other than the appearance of a sword, it was actually no different from the most common charging formation. In fact, it was even easier to break through. However, now they knew that this was not a formation. This was a high-level battle formation that could accommodate 8,000 heavy cavalry soldiers. In the eye of the formation was where Longchen was. He was the core of this battle formation. The 8,000 people carved the formation according to his request, and at this moment, it actually reflected his brilliance. Zila Zila. The long sword was like a rainbow. The light of the huge sword followed the 8,000 soldiers' charge and gradually condensed in front of them, as if a divine weapon was descending. The 8,000 heavy cavalry soldiers moved as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horde of beasts. Blood sprayed everywhere, and mournful and frenzied howls rang out incessantly. Demonic beasts that were several meters tall were chopped in half at the waist. The flat severed limbs made the countless spectators on the peak gasp. When the blood flowed out of the tunnel, the ground was dyed scarlet. Everyone held their breaths for a moment. Long Chen and his 8,000 soldiers were already standing at the end of the tunnel. Compared to the other tunnels, their speed was at least 1/3 faster. The most terrifying thing was that they had killed countless demonic beasts. It could be said that they were harvesting the demonic beasts. What kind of battle formation is this? It actually has such power. With 8,000 heavy cavalry soldiers, they were able to charge out of such a strong demonic beast horde without any injuries. Truly terrifying. If this could be done on the battlefield without 8,000 soldiers, our Black Dragon Empire's cavalry would be invincible. On the mountain peak, Qin Qing suddenly stood up from his golden throne and walked to the edge of the mountain peak. It was as if he wanted to take a closer look at what had happened in the first trial. His eyes were filled with curiosity and doubt. The other princes and officials also looked at each other, their faces full of shock. The 8 Kiliarchs who were about to reach the end of the tunnel were also shocked. Seeing that the 8,000 soldiers led by Long Chen were already standing at the end of the tunnel, they felt as if they were dreaming. They had passed through the most powerful demonic beast horde in history without losing a single soldier. Moreover, it had only taken them less than an hour. Is this real? We really made it through? That's right. Do you still remember what the Major General said? He said that he could pass through the 3 trials at will. It seems like he wasn't lying. Perhaps we really met a powerful general. At this moment, the Kiliarch's opinion of Long Chen had changed quite a bit. Long Chen's use of the battle formation was extremely admirable. Seeing that they had reached the end of the tunnel, the demonic beasts seemed to have felt fear. They all rushed towards the other tunnels. Now, as long as they put down the boulder, the first trial would be over. A cold smile flashed across the corner of Long Chen's mouth. He thought to himself that if Xie Jioshan wanted to rely on the so-called 3 stages of the military exercise to take his life, he would probably regret it. Seeing that the Kiliarchs were about to leave the formation to put down the boulder, Long Chen's face suddenly darkened. He shouted, "Don't leave the formation. This trial is not over yet." Everyone stopped in their tracks. In front of such a powerful battle formation, even the demonic beasts did not dare to charge. Why was the battle not over yet? Just as everyone was questioning Long Chen with doubtful gazes, they saw that at the intersection of the underground tunnels, the ground suddenly cracked by dozens of meters. A python-like demonic beast flew out. This demonic beast was extremely strange. It was shaped like a giant python, but it had no scales. On its gigantic head, other than rows of sharp teeth, there was nothing else. It was extremely terrifying. This is the earth-devouring python. It's a 3rd-grade king-rank demonic beast. The Kiliarchs standing at the front suddenly cried out, their eyes filled with panic. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and felt their scalps go numb. A 3rd-grade king-rank demonic beast was an existence comparable to the divine transformation realm. With its own advantages, it was even equivalent to the 4th layer of the divine transformation realm. Under such strength, there would probably not be much left of the 8,000 soldiers. The huge sword shadows on the 8,000 soldiers' armors suddenly flashed with a blue divine light. The 8,000 soldiers actually wanted to escape when they saw the earth-devouring python. On the mountain peak, the 3rd prince's face was as cold as ice. He stared at the king-rank demonic beast below and stepped forward. This Xie Jioshan is obviously using his position to avenge a personal grudge. I have never heard of a major general having to face a 3rd-grade king-rank demonic beast in the first trial of a military exercise. Father, please stop this military exercise. Otherwise, these 8,000 soldiers will not be able to fight against a 3rd-grade king-rank demonic beast. After hearing Qin Lai's words, if Qin Qing still didn't know the truth, then he was really stupid. Looking at the battle formation that condensed the giant sword, and thinking of how Long Chen easily broke the blood-devouring pill in the national treasury, he couldn't help but nod his head. According to the increase in difficulty, Long Chen would most likely die without a doubt. Chapter 136. Today, we must kill the earth-devouring python. Its huge body caused the entire ground to shake. At the same time, the demonic beasts that were constantly pouring into the tunnel prostrated themselves on the ground. The powerful pressure caused the demonic beasts to stop passing through. The people in the remaining 19 tunnels suddenly felt the pressure greatly decrease, and they quickly rushed to the end of the tunnel. They rushed to the intersection in a short period of time, but when they saw that there was a third-grade king-rank demonic beast at the end of the tunnel Long Chen was in, their expressions changed drastically. In the tunnel closest to Long Chen, a major general saw this scene and his face instantly turned pale. Behind him, a soldier with a face covered in blood shook his hand, and a crossbow arrow pierced through the sky, flying straight towards the giant king-rank demonic beast, who shot that arrow. The major general suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He wanted nothing more than to tear the frightened soldier apart, so he roared and immediately retreated. Roar! The moment the crossbow arrow came into contact with the giant demonic beast, it was instantly crushed by the protective spirit light. This attack seemed to have angered the giant python that had drilled out from the ground. Accompanied by a heaven-shaking roar, the stench made people vomit. Its huge breath rushed towards another tunnel that was only a few thousand meters away from Long Chen. Ah! The earth-devouring python's huge body constantly moved underground at an extremely fast speed. It was as if a mountain range was about to break out of the ground. Its huge mouthpart glowed with an eerie light as it fell into the tunnel, bringing with it a chilling shriek. Regardless of whether it was the heavy cavalry, the infantry, or the rain of arrows, none of them could do anything to it. Blood splattered everywhere, and in an instant, more than 2,000 soldiers were killed or injured. The major general didn't even look back as he flew away. The 8 Kiliarchs behind Long Chen couldn't stop trembling. The earth-devouring python didn't seem to have any leather armor, but in reality, it had devoured the black rock underground for many years. Its body was as hard as iron and indestructible, and it could move underground as if it was flat ground. This demonic beast wasn't something 800 heavy cavalry could defeat. Major General, retreat. Retreat as fast as you can. Leave the bottom of the valley and withdraw from this military exercise. One of the Kiliarchs hurriedly shouted. When he saw the 500 cavalrymen who were originally at the front being crushed like chickens and dogs, his heart trembled with fear. Long Chen stared at the 8 Kiliarchs whose legs were trembling slightly. Then, he looked at the 8,000 heavy cavalry soldiers behind him who were showing signs of retreating. His eyes were cold as he roared, 8,000 heavy armored soldiers, all of you are acting like girls. Retreating at the first sign of battle, what use do I have for you? Anyone who dares to retreat today will be killed without mercy. Long Chen's voice was not loud, but it was like a morning bell ringing in the ears of the 8 Kiliarchs. They bit their lips and didn't say a word. However, none of them dared to disobey the order and leave. Long Chen's words were naturally heard by everyone on the summit. If they were to leave, it would be disobeying the order. Even if Long Chen died, according to the military law of the Black Dragon Empire, only death awaited them. No matter which country you are in, deserters are always a disgrace. On the mountain peak, everyone was shocked by Long Chen's words. Soon after, they shook their heads. What was the difference between this and suicide? Condense the formation, charge. Follow me and kill this beast. It's only a third-grade king-rank beast, what's there to be afraid of? Long Chen roared and pointed his sword at the earth-devouring python. Long Chen roared and the 8 Kiliarchs clenched their teeth and moved. In an instant, the giant sword above the 8,000 cavalrymen condensed again. Then, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Under the leadership of Long Chen, the 8,000 cavalrymen actually rushed out of the tunnel and turned back to charge at the earth-devouring python. Is this guy crazy? He wants to commit suicide. Does he think that he can kill a third-grade king-rank earth-devouring python with this formation? Didn't he see that the cavalrymen were like chickens and dogs in front of this beast? Look at it, they were all killed in 10 breaths of time. Shouts could be heard from every group. They couldn't believe that someone would actually dare to charge towards a third-grade king-rank demonic beast. Wherever the giant sword passed, the demonic beasts were all cut down. When Long Chen and the 8,000 cavalrymen rushed 1,000 meters into the tunnel where the earth-devouring python was, they all gasped. They saw that the 2,000 cavalrymen had already died and their corpses were everywhere. The strong smell of blood filled everyone's nostrils. Roar! The mighty troop instantly attracted the attention of the earth-devouring python. As if it had sensed their arrival, it rushed over in an instant. Xian Yuan sword formation, move according to my will. Seeing the earth-devouring python rushing to kill, no one dared to move an inch. At this moment, Long Chen was wrapped in spiritual light, as if he was absorbing the souls of the 8,000 soldiers. Then, he clenched his right hand in the air and the giant sword in front of the formation was waved out of thin air. Sword essence, 5 elements cut. The long sword that covered the sky shone brightly again. A mighty sword essence swept in all directions. Even from 10,000 meters away, people could feel its power. The weather changed. On the mountain peak, Emperor Qin Qing and the other princes stared at Long Chen. At this moment, there was no longer a trace of contempt in their eyes. They were all shocked. If this formation was known, it could turn the situation around. How is this possible? This person is using the sword formed by 8,000 cavalrymen. It even contains the power of conception. This is the first time I've seen such a formation. If it can be used on a large scale in the army, the Black Dragon Empire will be invincible under the 5 big sects. Amidst countless people's exclamations, the sword fell on the huge body of the earth-devouring python without any suspense. The originally indestructible giant demonic beast was torn apart like a thin piece of paper, dozens of meters underground. It was cut in half by the sword. A huge crack that spanned hundreds of meters was left on the ground. The surface of the cut was shockingly smooth. Wherever the sword passed, there was sword essence. A third-grade king-level demonic beast was killed with one sword. The air seemed to have frozen, but everyone knew that when the sword was used, the result was already decided. With the death of the earth-devouring python, the beast-tide whimpered and retreated. They no longer had the courage to step into the tunnel. The first stage had ended in such a way. All the major generals walked out of the tunnel and cupped their fists at Long Chen from afar to express their gratitude. They all wanted to befriend him. Everyone knew that after this military exercise, Long Chen's status would definitely rise. On the mountain peak, the first prince's face was ashen. As everyone watched, he slowly retreated and said to the person behind him, Long Chen has attracted His Majesty's attention. He can't kill him today. Tell Xie Jioshan to stop. Hearing this, the person quickly disappeared from the mountain peak. When he reappeared, he was already in a dark cave in the 100-mile valley. In front of him was Xie Jioshan, dressed in black and gold armor. Can't kill him today? Xie Jioshan's mouth flashed with a hint of madness. He said in a low voice, no one can stop me from killing him today. Whoosh! Chapter 137. An unstoppable showdown. On the summit, the first prince's expression was extremely ugly. His subordinate had not returned for a long time, and Xie Jioshan had not shown himself either. This made him feel uneasy. Father, should we stop this military exercise? The third prince asked again. Although Long Chen had displayed unparalleled strength in the first trial, Qin Lai still felt uneasy in his heart. Xie Jioshan's absence had also caused him to be deeply worried. Xie Jioshan wanted to kill Long Chen to the bone. The 3 stages of the military exercise would definitely be more dangerous than the previous one. Everyone looked at Qin Qing. A third-grade king-rank demonic beast had appeared in the first round. Moreover, a major general and 2,000 soldiers had been killed because of it. Moreover, Long Chen had shown his combat strength at the moment. If he died here, it would not be worth it. Qin Qing stared at Long Chen and said in a deep voice, ask Xie Jioshan to come see me. There seems to be something wrong with today's military exercise. The old man behind Qin Qing nodded and walked down the mountain. However, not long after he left, shouts could be heard from the valley. Whoosh! Soldiers in armors slowly walked out from all directions of the valley. Tens of thousands of them gathered in the area dozens of miles in front of the troops. At the bottom of the valley, huge crossbows were erected on top of the boulders. Then, a black-faced middle-aged general with a red iron spear in his hand and a three-horned blood wolf riding on top of him shouted in a deep voice, "The second stage of the military exercise, the two armies face each other." The moment this person appeared with tens of thousands of elite soldiers, the spectators on the mountain peak all sucked in a breath of cold air. The third prince was even more shocked as he said, "How could Xie Jiushan dare to do this? These tens of thousands of elite soldiers are all veterans who have experienced the battlefield. Even 1 against 2 would not be a problem. There are also those heavy silver crossbows, there are at least 100 of them." Swoosh! Arrows were shot out one after another, tearing through the air. Spiritual light flickered on the crossbows, and wherever they passed, mountains and stones would be split. Not only that, but after these tens of thousands of elite soldiers appeared, formation runes spread out in all directions of the 100-mile valley, like a transparent water curtain that cut through space. Asterisk whoosh, asterisk one of the giant birds couldn't dodge in time and was instantly cut open by the array formation, causing blood to spray out. On the peak, Qin Qing's face gradually darkened. He asked in a deep voice, "Where's Xie Jiushan? What is he doing? Why did he activate the defensive formation of the 100-mile valley?" Unfortunately, no one answered. The first imperial prince's face was also ashen. He thought to himself that Xie Jiushan had really gone crazy this time. What's going on? Why is the defensive formation activated? Isn't this formation only activated during the military exercise between the generals? Why are there heavy crossbows? These heavy crossbows are powerful enough to kill divine transformation cultivators. Why are there 100 of them? Aren't they pushing us to our deaths? I give up on this military exercise. I give up too. I don't want the rank of Major General anymore. Inside the valley, the major generals realized the seriousness of the situation. If such a terrifying lineup really charged at each other, only death would await everyone. Especially the crossbows. With the support of the array formation, they were powerful enough to kill divine transformation cultivators. Hundreds of crossbows were simply a nightmare for them. On the peak of the mountain, the first imperial prince's face flashed a cold smile. He stared at Longchen from afar and then said again, "Those who give up should retreat to the edge. Naturally, you won't be affected by the second stage." Everyone immediately retreated as if they had been granted amnesty. Only Longchen didn't move. The 8 Kiliarchs saw that all the major generals in the other corridors had retreated and couldn't help but ask, "General, let's give up." Longchen shook his head and said indifferently, "Do you think the rules he spoke of will work on me? I'm afraid that as long as we have the slightest intention to retreat, we will be greeted with a sky full of crossbows." The 8 Kiliarchs' faces were very ugly. Now, they were in the same boat as Long Chen. The Kiliarchs in the lead gritted his teeth and bowed to Long Chen. He said in a deep voice, "Since the Major General said that the 3 stages can be broken with a snap of the finger, we are willing to follow you to death." The other 7 Kiliarchs looked at each other and followed closely behind. The scene of Long Chen using the array formation just now had a great impact on them. They weren't stupid people. They knew that as long as Long Chen didn't die today, he would definitely be put in an important position by the Empire. Moreover, they could only believe in Long Chen. They hoped that Long Chen would have such a heaven-defying trump card again. Seeing the 8 Kiliarchs like this, Long Chen smiled faintly. It was as if no matter how dangerous the situation was, he was always calm and collected, as if victory was in his grasp. Long Chen said, "I said that as long as you act according to my orders, you will definitely pass the 3 stages today. However, these hundreds of crossbows are somewhat beyond my expectations." Array formation. With Long Chen's order, the 8,000 soldiers roared in unison. The dazzling array formation surged again, but this time, the array formation began to change. Chapter 138. Sword Come. The Hundredly Valley was originally a battlefield for the lieutenant general level military exercises, but at this moment, there was only a major general leading 8,000 heavy cavalry in battle. 8,000 heavy cavalry against tens of thousands of elite soldiers, a battle that was comparable to a general's military exercise. The cavalry of the two sides clashed first. Xie Jiushan's heavy cavalry disregarded their own lives and tried to break up Long Chen's battle formation. They all knew the power of this battle formation and knew that once this battle formation was broken up, the 8,000 heavy cavalry would be like a sheet of loose sand. The demonic beast mounts continued to die. Long Chen stood at the front and looked at the cavalry charging from all directions. He waved the long sword in his hand and drew the power of the 8,000 cavalry behind him. 100-meter-long sword light was formed in an instant. 9 transformations sword aura. With Long Chen's command, the shadow of the gigantic sword that blotted out the sky was waved like an arm. In an instant, boundless sword light spread out in all directions. Wherever the sword light passed, a smooth crack appeared on the ground, and the heads of the heavy armored cavalrymen were separated from their bodies. Swoosh! At the same time, heavy crossbows pierced through the air. Ah! Shrill cries came from the battle formation behind Long Chen. The power of the heavy crossbows was simply too great. The arrows that were powerful enough to kill a divine transformation realm warrior entered the battle formation, causing more and more heavy cavalry soldiers to be killed or injured. On the mountain peak, Qin Qing looked down at the scene below and said coldly, "Oh Yezi, I remember that you were the one who set up this array. Go and break it now." It seems that Xie Jiushan has been in power for too long. Although everyone knew that Qin Qing was already beyond cure, his words and actions were still dignified without being angry. The surrounding princes and generals were all silent as they exchanged pleasantries. Oh Yezi looked at Long Chen being surrounded by tens of thousands of soldiers and sneered, "I'll go right now. However, this formation is so large that it spans hundreds of miles. I'm afraid it won't be easy to break it in a short amount of time. How dare you?" Qin Qing's face suddenly turned cold, and a murderous aura spread out. Everyone around him immediately knelt on the ground. Everyone realized that although this emperor of the empire had been ignoring the affairs of the imperial court for the past few years, his prestige had not decreased at all. Oh Yezi's face also paled. Although his status was not low, this was the Black Dragon Empire. If he angered Qin Qing, he would not be able to bear the consequences. Just as everyone was silent, the old man behind Qin Qing who had always been following him walked forward and said indifferently, "Your Majesty, there is no need to worry. The formation that this kid used is far from being as simple as we imagined. Moreover, since he was able to break the blood-devouring formation, it would not be difficult for him to break out of the defensive formation." When everyone heard this, they immediately looked down. Only then did they realize that from the peak to the huge valley, as the battle became more and more chaotic, the battle formation that Long Chen was in was actually not chaotic at all. One sword, slaughter all lives. Bloodlight splattered behind Long Chen, and the eyes of the 8 Kiliarchs and the thousands of soldiers behind them were filled with blood. An almost tangible killing intent and battle will soared into the heavens. Long Chen's hornless dragon sword suddenly disappeared into the huge sword shadow formed by the battle formation. How terrifying was the sword skill displayed by the sword shadow of the battle formation. This was also the reason why Qin Qing wanted to protect Long Chen on the mountain peak. Not only was the battle prowess of this formation unparalleled, but most importantly, it could absorb the attacks of everyone within the formation for its own use. If this formation was used in a war on a large scale, then the power structure of the 5 great sects would change drastically. 1. Under the endless attacks, the huge sword shadow above Long Chen's head finally turned scarlet. Inside it was Long Chen's hornless dragon sword. The sword shadow suddenly rushed out and left the battle formation. Long Chen pointed with his finger and it instantly traversed through space. Boom! Boom! Every move of the huge sword shadow had the power to move mountains and seas. In the blink of an eye, the hundreds of heavy crossbows were destroyed one by one. Even the entire mountain was cut in half by the sword. The sword was like a death sentence, mercilessly reaping the lives of Xie Jioshan's soldiers. Not only did it not weaken, it actually became stronger and stronger. In less than 100 breaths, thousands of soldiers were killed. The black-faced general's face was extremely ugly. He said in a low voice, "Quickly join forces and take down this kid. This person is too strange. He can actually use his own strength to communicate with the sword formation. He can even use the sword formation to display sword skills." As soon as the general gave the order, the other generals who came with him instantly charged toward Long Chen with their swords in hand. Long Chen sneered and shouted, "Chili Arch Lin Yuan, take my place. Just keep the battle formation running. Leave these people to me." Long Chen leaped out and actually left the battle formation. 8 Divine Transformation Realm Warriors. Do you think you can kill me like this? Tell Xie Jioshan that he doesn't have to wait any longer. This second stage can't stop me. Long Chen stood on the ground and no one dared to approach him. On the mountain peak, everyone frowned deeply. Qin Qing could not help but shout, "This kid really doesn't want to live anymore." Under such circumstances, he still dares to leave the battle formation. Facing 8 Divine Transformation Realm generals is like digging his own grave. There was no lack of people with sharp eyes present. They could tell at a glance that Long Chen did not condense his sea of qi. If it was not for this powerful battle formation, not to mention the 8 Divine Transformation Realm warriors, even the tens of thousands of elite soldiers would be annihilated in 10 minutes. Do I need a general to deal with you? You think too highly of yourself. Don't think that just because you're on the heaven roll, you have the ability to defeat us Divine Transformation warriors. Today is the day you die. The black-faced general said as he slashed out with his sword. For a moment, the 8 Divine Transformation Realm warriors sent out 8 sword rays that were 1,000 feet long. Countless soldiers retreated in horror. However, Long Chen stood where he was and punched out with his fists like dragons. Bang, 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 the 8 sword rays that were 1,000 feet long suddenly exploded. The spiritual power that scattered in all directions swept up a boundless wind. There was not a single person within 1,000 feet of Long Chen. Wherever the spiritual power passed, all living things were instantly torn to pieces. This is your strength. Divine Transformation Realm warriors are nothing more than this. Before the wind dissipated, a voice was first heard. A proud figure slowly walked out. The moment Long Chen walked out, the 8 Divine Transformation Realm generals on the mountain peak and in front of him all widened their eyes and took 2 steps back. He actually used his mortal body to block the sword rays that were 1,000 feet long from 8 Divine Transformation Realm warriors. What is going on? He clearly hasn't reached the Divine Transformation Realm, but he actually used brute force to disperse the attacks of 8 Divine Transformation Realm warriors. The black-faced general cried out involuntarily. Chapter 139. Xie Jioshan goes to battle. After Long Chen left the formation, he pointed the horned dragon sword at the 8 Divine Transformation Realm generals. The 8 Semi-God Realm generals seemed to have been provoked like never before. A warrior in the spiritual martial arts realm actually wanted to fight against the 8 of them alone. However, they also knew that Long Chen's combat power could not be measured by common sense. Otherwise, he would not have been able to block the attacks of the 8 of them. The soldiers around them subconsciously distanced themselves from them. Are you going to come at me one by one, or all at once? Long Chen said coldly. The 8 people snorted coldly. They had no intention of answering. Instead, they leaped up and flew over. Their attacks arrived in an instant. They were generals, not warriors. Their purpose was to kill the enemy. This made Long Chen admire them. 8 generals in the semi-god realm joined forces to kill a warrior in the spirit martial realm. Such a scene was unprecedented. In an instant, the 8 people's attacks covered an area of 1,000 meters. With Long Chen as the center, the area instantly became a place where terrifying spiritual light surged. For a moment, the earth cracked, and sword blades surged like a tide. Everyone on the peak couldn't help but feel shocked when they saw this terrifying scene. However, everyone soon discovered that under the siege of the 8 people, the battle, which should have ended immediately, was now in a stalemate. The sky was filled with sword radiance and attacks. The 8 semi-god realm warriors couldn't take down a warrior of the spirit martial realm in a short time. Boom! A loud sound rang out, and everyone's expression suddenly changed. A corpse flew out of the battlefield, its head separated from its body, and the sword in its hand broke into 2. Is this person really at the spirit martial realm? He was able to take on 8 divine transformation stage generals all by himself and even killed one of them. Even Qin Qing, the monarch of a nation, couldn't help but stutter. Such terrifying combat strength had long exceeded their understanding. It was well known that every level of the spirit martial realm had a difference of 500 kilograms of strength. The spirit martial realm and the divine transformation realm could not be mentioned in the same breath. Every time one opened up the sea of qi, there would be earth-shaking changes. There were very few people who could fight above their level. On the other hand, not only was Chang Chen able to fight against opponents of a higher cultivation level, but he was also able to fight against 8 opponents at the same time. He even seemed to be on par with them. Bang bang bang. Qin Qing's voice had yet to fade when another 3 figures were blasted out from the battlefield. All of them had no aura at all, and their lifeless eyes were filled with shock. It was as if they had seen something incomprehensible before they died. At this moment, no one was in the mood to watch the other soldiers fight in the valley. All eyes were locked on the battle between Long Chen and the remaining 4 generals in the divine transformation realm. 4 soul formation realm generals had died in a row. The battle, which was originally impossible to observe because of the scattered spiritual light, became clear. However, when everyone saw it clearly, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They felt as if lightning had struck their minds. Chang Chen looked like a deity. A mighty aura shot up into the sky from his body. The sword in his hand moved like lightning. The 5 sword intents changed unpredictably. Every sword was filled with boundless killing intent. It turned out that Long Chen had been suppressing these semi-god realm warriors in a domineering manner. What kind of monster are you exactly? A divine transformation realm general's face was livid, and his heart was cold. After a bout of battle, their understanding of Long Chen and their hearts underwent an earth-shaking change. Just the martial arts techniques used by Long Chen alone made them feel terrified. They were all generals of the empire. They had seen a few martial arts techniques above the 6th grade of the king step. Each of those martial arts techniques was priceless. However, in this battle, the power of nearly 10 sword techniques used by Long Chen had exceeded the 6th grade of the king step. They even suspected that they had reached the 9th grade of the king step. Not only that, but all the martial arts techniques used by Long Chen had reached the level of perfection. There was also the unpredictable body movement and the sword intents that changed at will. All of these made the 8 of them feel restrained. The most terrifying thing was Long Chen's tremendous strength. The 7 of them faced each other head-on. Whenever they were hit by his attacks, they would feel as if they were hit by a mountain. They would instantly lose their combat ability. After the battle, everyone was shocked to find that although Long Chen had not stepped into the divine transformation realm, his combat ability was still comparable to that of the 4th layer of the divine transformation realm. Coupled with his various techniques, he could even fight against those at the 5th or 6th layer of the divine transformation realm. In close combat, he even had the strength of an ancient giant beast. Bang! It was a pity that Long Chen did not intend to answer him. Instead, his cry distracted another general. Long Chen kicked him in the chest. His entire chest caved in. He flew for thousands of meters and smashed a huge hole in the ground. When the people on the peak saw this scene, they were all as shocked as the generals were. 8 against 1, but now there were only 3 left. At this moment, there was no suspense about the outcome of the battle. The remaining 3 generals could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. They were all promoted by Xie Jiushan. They were absolutely loyal to Xie Jiushan. However, in the face of certain death, they still felt fear. Why did you stop fighting? Long Chen looked at the three people who were retreating further and further away. He said indifferently, order all the soldiers to retreat. Otherwise, after I kill the three of you, if they don't surrender, then I will slaughter them. Long Chen's words were extremely cold. It was as if he was talking about something insignificant. However, the three generals broke out in cold sweat because they knew that Long Chen was not lying. Once the three of them were defeated, Long Chen could control the Xianyuan sword formation again with his strength. The result was obvious. Retreat. The three generals looked at each other. Finally, they gritted their teeth and shouted. Seeing that the two armies were gradually separating from each other, Long Chen stood on the peak of the mountain. He then said in a loud voice, Xie Jiushan, you only have yourself to blame for the death of your son. When I came to the imperial capital, you wanted to take my life. Today is the day we settle our old grudges. After Long Chen finished speaking, he looked at the distant peak of the mountain. After a few breaths, a figure slowly appeared. He was wearing black iron heavy armor and his eyes were cold. Even though he was slightly old, he still had an aura that made people tremble. Xie Jiushan stared at Long Chen from afar. He gradually smiled. You really exceeded my expectations. A spirit martial realm cultivator actually has the strength to crush a third-order soul formation realm cultivator. If you were given another year or so, I'm afraid that the entire Black Dragon Empire would not be able to trap you. Xie Jiushan's voice was like a flood. As soon as he said this, the many princes and ministers on the mountain peak, and even the current Qin Qing, could not help but fall silent. The strength that Long Chen showed today was really too monstrous. His talent caused everyone to feel fear in their hearts. After Xie Jiushan finished speaking, he did not wait for Long Chen to reply. He shouted again, today, no matter how strong you are, I will make you die here. Today, I will personally avenge my son's death. As Xie Jiushan's voice fell, his face gradually became crazed. The qi around his body suddenly dispersed. A wave of spiritual pressure swept out in all directions. Seventh Order Soul Formation Realm. Chapter 140. Strange elemental energy. Xie Jiushan actually went out to battle personally. All the troops within the 100-mile valley retreated in all directions. Xie Jiushan had been famous for a long time and held the position of Xianyuan general in the capital. He controlled a large number of troops. Today, he actually wanted to personally attack Long Chen. On the peak, the first prince's expression was unprecedentedly ugly. The thing he didn't want to see the most had finally happened. Xie Jiushan could be said to be his greatest support in the capital. Today, Xie Jiushan actually personally attacked and killed Long Chen in front of everyone. After today, regardless of whether Long Chen lived or died, Xie Jiushan's position as Xianyuan general would no longer exist. In reality, how could Xie Jiushan not know that his actions today would destroy all his status in the capital? However, when Long Chen led 8,000 soldiers and came out unscathed, he knew that if he didn't kill Long Chen today, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens in the future. He would only have a chance when the first prince obtained the throne. He couldn't wait any longer. Since Xie Changfeng's death, his heart had been like dead ashes. Countless hatred had filled his heart. There wasn't a moment when he didn't want to kill Long Chen to avenge Xie Changfeng. I've fought on the battlefield all my life and made countless contributions. I only have one son. Today, even if I don't want the position of Xianyuan general, I will kill you with my own hands. Xie Jiushan stared at Long Chen with eyes full of crazed killing intent. Even his body was trembling with excitement. He had waited for this day for too long. Long Chen stared at Xie Changfeng. His heart didn't waver. He had lived 2 lives, so he knew karma and grudges. He and Xie Jiushan might not have interacted much, but they had formed a life and death grudge. Today was the day to end this karma. As Xie Jiushan's voice fell, his right hand grasped the air. A 7-foot-long broadsword appeared in his hand. The white blade glinted coldly with a black iron body. Anyone who looked at it couldn't help but feel a chill in their heart. This saber is called Black Water. It has killed 121 enemy generals and countless soldiers. It has fought alongside me for 30 years. Xie Jiushan walked step by step towards Long Chen. The soldiers in all directions stopped moving. They knew that today's battle had nothing to do with them. The entire 100-mile valley was filled with killing intent, and the wind swept away the clouds. Long Chen took a deep breath and charged forward with the hornless dragon sword in hand. The two of them leaped into the air and clashed with each other under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Although the sword in Long Chen's hand was shining brightly, the difference between it and Xie Jiushan's was like heaven and earth. With every move Xie Jiushan made, the spiritual energy around his body surged like a tide, and waves of energy spread out like a tsunami. Bang! With just one move, Long Chen was pushed back dozens of meters, and he frowned. Although he had the strength of 36 dragon elephants, he was still in the spiritual martial realm and had yet to open his sea of qi. Although he had the strength of 40,000 pounds, he was only comparable to the fourth layer of the divine transformation realm. Facing Xie Jiushan, who was in the seventh layer of the divine transformation realm, was a bit difficult. On the peak, Qing Qing stared at Long Chen and muttered to himself, "A young master of a family from Iron Mountain City can actually take an attack from me, a warrior at the seventh level of the divine transformation realm, with a cultivation of the spiritual martial realm. Not to mention the entire Xuanlong Empire, I'm afraid that there has never been such a monster in the surrounding countries." The people around him nodded repeatedly. They felt that Long Chen had given them too many surprises today. The third prince hurriedly stood up and said, "Father, Long Chen's talent is outstanding, and he is definitely not a fish in a pond. However, he is definitely not a hidden danger to the Black Dragon Empire. Perhaps he is the opportunity for the rise of the Black Dragon Empire. Father, please save him." Qing Qing frowned slightly, and no one knew what he was thinking. He just asked faintly, "Third prince, is this person your guest?" The third prince's heart trembled. He did not know what Qing Qing meant, but he still nodded. "When can this formation be broken from the outside?" Qing Qing asked the old man behind him. The old man stared at the place where Long Chen and Xie Jiushan were fighting. He shook his head and replied, "The defensive formation of this military exercise ground can't be broken in a short time. Even if we attack it, I'm afraid the outcome of the battle will be decided by then." Everyone nodded. Now that Long Chen was in the seventh layer of the divine transformation realm against a spiritual martial realm, no matter how heaven-defying he was, they were afraid that he would be defeated in a short time. The outcome of today's battle was already decided. In the valley, Xie Jiushan forced Long Chen to retreat 10 times in a row. However, his face gradually turned ugly because he found that with his strength, he could not do anything to Long Chen in a short time. Sword will, 5 elements slash. With a roar, Long Chen slashed out 5 times in a row. Each slash carried an unparalleled sword will, unpredictable and powerful. Xie Jiushan became more and more frightened. Under normal circumstances, the spiritual martial realm was like a child to him. No matter what kind of attack it was extremely difficult to hurt him. However, Long Chen was different. Although Long Chen was only in the spiritual martial realm, he could feel the terrible power contained in each of his attacks. You're not even 20 years old, but you've comprehended 5 types of sword will. Each move is a high-level martial arts technique. However, I've reached the 7th layer of the divine transformation realm. Without the Sea of Qi, you can't defeat me." Xie Jiushan roared. He had no intention of retreating at all. No matter how Long Chen attacked, he faced Long Chen head-on. The violent spiritual power broke through Long Chen's attacks as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Seeing this scene, the people on the peak sighed. Long Chen's talent was rare in the world, but Xie Jiushan was really too strong. The outcome of today's battle was already decided. Even if he was within 100 miles of the valley, no one would be able to save his life. Pfft. However, at this moment, something happened that made everyone's jaws drop. Xie Jioshan had exchanged dozens of moves with Long Chen. He had the upper hand in every move, but at this moment, he spat out a mouthful of blood. What's going on? Didn't he have the upper hand just now? Long Chen kept retreating. Why is he like this? Other than being a little embarrassed, that kid doesn't seem to have any injuries. On the other hand, Xie Jioshan is seriously injured. What the hell is going on? For a moment, everyone was inexplicably shocked. No one could see the reason for this strange scene. Even Xie Jioshan, who was in the arena, was at a loss when he saw the blood spurting out of his body in his sea of qi that was riddled with holes. He screamed crazily, What is going on? What did you do? Long Chen looked at Xie Jioshan and was a little surprised. In fact, even he did not expect the scene. The reason for this was that as he was about to step into the soul formation stage, a strange origin energy flowed out from the mysterious area in his mind. This origin energy flowed out involuntarily along with Long Chen's spiritual power. It tore apart Xie Jioshan's sea of qi like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. What is this origin energy? It can actually tear apart the sea of qi of a level 7 spiritual martial realm cultivator. Long Chen muttered to himself. He was more and more curious about the mystery in his mind. No one could understand the sudden turn of events. However, everyone knew that Xie Jioshan had lost. He had lost in a strange and sullen way. General Xie, open the array. You have lost today. The military exercise is over. The first prince seemed to want to give Xie Jioshan a fist salute at the last moment. At least, he wanted to keep him alive. This way, he might have a chance to start all over again. Chapter 141. A Sky Full of Dragons and Elephants. Xie Jioshan laughed maniacally as he felt his sea of qi, which was riddled with holes by Long Chen's strange Yuan Li. Not only did he not retreat, but he also went crazy. His entire body suddenly exploded with spiritual energy. The hard and cold armor instantly shattered, revealing a body full of scars. I, Xie Jioshan, have fought countless battles, but I have never retreated. Today, facing you, a spiritual martial realm, is even more impossible. Xie Jioshan glared at Long Chen. Long Chen looked at Xie Jioshan's soaring spirit and crazy killing intent. He could not help but shake his head, and respect for Xie Jioshan grew in his heart. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, everyone stared at Xie Jioshan's right hand. A stream of blood gradually flowed out from it. Xie Jioshan then pressed his thumb down between his eyebrows, his fingertips carried a smear of blood as they swept across his body. In the blink of an eye, lines of patterns covered Xie Jioshan's body and covered his face. Out of nowhere, he looked even more awe-inspiring. In the blink of an eye, a blood-red mist enveloped Xie Jioshan's entire body. Lines of patterns like twisting earthworms crawled across his skin and swept across every corner of his body. Gradually, his scars disappeared and his skin became brighter. Xie Jioshan, who was already middle-aged, had his hair fluttering in the wind. His face was full of vigor and vitality. He was no different from Long Chen. Long Chen looked at this scene and could not help but frown. This was because he realized that not only had Xie Jioshan recovered his youth, but the hole in his dantian that had been damaged by Yuan Li had also recovered. Even his cultivation level was increasing. This is the art of life-stealing. On the mountain peak, a general cried out. Everyone's expression changed when they heard this. Qing Qing also shouted coldly and ordered, Is Xie Jioshan crazy? Tell everyone above level 6 languaging to attack the formation. This formation must be opened. When everyone heard this, they knew that the situation had reached an uncontrollable stage. Even the first prince could only shake his head when he saw Xie Jioshan's madness. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, tens of thousands of people walked towards the defensive formation of the 100-mile valley. Beams of spiritual light violently attacked the formation. Inside the formation, many of the major generals who had participated in the battle could see the severity of the situation. They hurriedly bombarded the formation from the inside. I said that I will avenge my son today. Xie Jiushan acted as if he did not see anything. At this moment, Long Chen could also see the peculiarity of Xie Jiushan's secret technique. With his powerful divine sense, he could clearly sense that although Xie Jiushan had recovered to his peak state, his vitality was rapidly depleting. Bang! As Xie Jiushan's voice fell, he suddenly disappeared from his original position. His speed was so fast that it could not be compared to when he was fighting with Long Chen. Aurora's plunder. Long Chen held his long sword and blocked the attack as fast as he could. A cold light quickly condensed on the edge of his sword and finally intertwined with Xie Jiushan's long sword. Boom! Immediately after, a strong gust of wind spread in all directions. The light of the sword and the shadow of the sword actually dispersed the clouds above the two of them, so strong, but it's still not enough. Long Chen frantically retreated. When his feet landed, the layers of the mountain more than 10 meters away cracked and emitted a rumbling sound. Xie Jiushan's strength had increased explosively. Regardless of whether it was his speed or strength, he had reached his peak state. Long Chen knew that relying only on his strength and that strange origin power was not enough to block him. Strength can defeat 10 speed. This was how it worked. Although Long Chen's martial arts, body movement, strength, and origin power were unparalleled in combat, he was still only at the spiritual martial realm. He still had not condensed his energy C. Being able to fight Xie Jiushan, who was at the divine transformation realm, was already incredible and unheard of. At this moment, Xie Jiushan had even surpassed the 7th level of the divine transformation realm. Such terrifying strength was not something that could be made up for by simple techniques. At this moment, the only way to win was to use a secret technique. In this way, he would be able to increase his combat strength in a short period of time. Only then would he be able to defeat Xie Jiushan. Countless people surrounded the periphery of the 100-kilometer area. When they saw this scene, they all shook their heads. Everyone had seen Long Chen's strength today, but such a genius was going to fall like this. It was truly a pity. The first prince and the third prince also quickly descended from the peak. When the third prince saw this scene, his expression immediately turned extremely ugly. He shouted to the people behind him in a deep voice, "Use all your strength and consume the medicinal pills. Attack the formation." Seeing that the third prince's personal guards were attacking the formation with all their might, the eldest prince slowly walked over. When he saw Long Chen retreating inside the formation, he suddenly sneered and said in a low voice, "Third brother, I have to say that you've found a terrifying guest elder. It's a pity that he's going to die today." In Xie Jiushan's current state, unless he's at the Return to Void realm, there are few people in the entire Black Dragon Empire who can defeat him. At this moment, the eldest prince let out a long sigh of relief. He even felt that Xie Jiushan's madness was not a complete mistake. Using all of this in exchange for Long Chen's life might not be a bad thing. Qinlai's face was ashen. As he watched Xie Jiushan continuously increase his spiritual power, his heart sank to the bottom. His whole body also began to attack the formation. Long Chen is finished. General Xie used this technique in his early years for a short period of time and killed someone who was 3 realms higher than him. However, he also lost several years of his life because of this. Now that General Xie is using this technique without regard for his life, I'm afraid that apart from the legendary Return to Void realm, no one can suppress him. It's a pity that Long Chen is so talented. Countless people were discussing this. Long Chen's name was destined to spread throughout the Black Dragon Empire after today's battle. However, he was going to fall here. In the valley, Long Chen's brows were tightly knitted. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He knew that if he did not use the secret technique today, he would not be able to defeat Xie Jiushan. Today's battle was too fierce. If I use the secret technique, the short period of weakness will be the most dangerous time for me. However, I can only do this now. Now that I'm at the 36th level of the spirit martial realm, once I use the secret technique, I may have the cultivation of the divine transformation realm for a short period of time. Long Chen clenched his fists. His clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. Looking at Xie Jioshan, who was coming at him again, Long Chen roared, "Today, let me see in advance what kind of combat power I have after entering the divine transformation realm." Secret technique, Dan Acupoint Spirit Condensation. Following Long Chen's roar, the sound of a volcano erupting suddenly came from his body. Streams of spiritual energy gushed out from the major acupoints all over his body. In an instant, 36 illusory images of dragons and elephants soared into the sky and covered the entire sky. Long Chen's cultivation was at the peak of the spirit martial realm. Under normal circumstances, other secret techniques would not have any effect at all. This was because ordinary secret techniques could not surpass the cultivation of a large realm. At the very least, it was impossible to condense the sea of energy and enter the divine transformation realm. However, the technique he was using now was completely different. This technique allowed him to condense the power of all his major acupoints, open the sea of energy in a short period of time, and enter the divine transformation realm. Bang! The powerful aura directly blew away Xie Jioshan, who was coming at him. Xie Jioshan's expression changed drastically, as if he had seen the most terrifying scene in the world. At the same time, countless people in all directions stopped what they were doing and stared at Long Chen's back. Chapter 142. Temporary Divinity Transformation. The 36 dragons and elephants cover the sky and the sun, vast and boundless. The 36 acupoints on Long Chen's body shone brightly like stars. This. What's going on? How can he have 36 dragonesque elephant phantoms? Xie Jioshan cried out in shock after being pushed back. As everyone knew, there were only 9 levels in the spiritual martial realm. Only 9 major acupoints could be opened and the power of 9 dragon elephants could be awakened. But now, Long Chen had 36 dragonesque elephant phantoms in front of them. Not only that, the dazzling starlight around him told everyone that he had opened 36 dragonesque elephant acupoints. What's going on? What kind of secret technique did this brat use? How can he possess the strength of 36 dragon elephants? These major acupoints are shining brightly. They are definitely not unrelated acupoints, but dragon elephant major acupoints. Cries of surprise could not be heard, and in an instant, a shocking wave was set off. Such a strange thing had already exceeded everyone's common sense. At this moment, the first prince, the third prince, and the people at the General Zhenyuan mansion that day suddenly came to a realization. They recalled how Long Chen had opened 5 acupoints in a row at the General Zhenyuan mansion that day. Now, it seemed that Long Chen was not using an unorthodox method to open up unrelated acupoints. Instead, it was the Longxiang acupoint. At this moment, the Black Dragon Empire's Minister of National Defense, Qin Qing, also stared at Long Chen. After a long while, he said in a deep voice, "This kid must not die today," Qin Qing shouted. His eyes were like cold needles as he looked at Oyezi. His meaning was self-evident. Oyezi suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He quickly stepped forward and said, "I can tamper with this array. With everyone's bombardment, it will be opened in less than a quarter of an hour." For a moment, Long Chen became the center of attention. He was an unprecedented wonder. Inside the formation, Long Chen already had a plan for the scene. Following the appearance of the 36 dragon elephant phantoms around his body, the bright starlight from the major acupoints all over his body was like a river converging into the sea, transforming into streams of spiritual power that flowed towards his dantian. Qi. As the dragonesque elephant phantoms disappeared, a qi sea slowly formed in Long Chen's dantian. However, this sea of dantian was extremely unstable. Long Chen clearly felt that the barrier in his dantian was still there. Using a secret technique to achieve a short breakthrough was much different than him breaking through the spirit martial force and entering the semi-god realm normally. However, this 3,000-foot sea of qi was enough for Long Chen. The moment the sea of qi was formed, the shackles in Long Chen's mind seemed to disappear completely. The fog in the mysterious area also dispersed. Long Chen's antion. For ordinary people, the divine transformation realm was the beginning of the divine will and the Qi-Si realm. On the other hand, Longchen possessed the sovereign's divine will. To him, the divine transformation realm was only lacking a spiritual Si. At that moment, he had briefly peeked into the divine transformation realm, but he had discovered another world. That was the mysterious place that had always existed in his mind after his rebirth. This is a true dragon? It turns out that the divine transformation realm is just the beginning of my cultivation in this life. Longchen looked at the mysterious area in his mind and couldn't help but tremble. Ha ha! Longchen stood at the peak of the mountain, his long hair fluttering in the wind. He held a long sword in his hand and smiled arrogantly. Countless people stared at Longchen. For some reason, they felt a sense of insignificance in their hearts. They even subconsciously wanted to kneel down and worship him. Xie Jioshan's face turned gloomy as well. He shouted, "Playing tricks! You've only reached the semi-god realm for a short period of time. I'm still close to the profound semi-god realm." As soon as he finished speaking, Xie Jioshan pointed his long sword at the sky. Spiritual energy shot out from his entire body. The light from the long sword split into 8. They extended thousands of feet into the sky and pierced through the 9 heavens. There was a blood-red brilliance coming from them. It was extremely terrifying. Slash of the 8 desolations. Whoosh! 8 blood-red rays of light that were thousands of feet long suddenly fell. Wherever they passed, the ground cracked and the mountains turned into powder. A series of explosions rang out incessantly. The 8 rays of light instantly sealed off all of Longchen's paths of escape. This sword was going to decide life and death. Xie Jioshan has really gone crazy for his son. This child is obviously not an ordinary person. If he wasn't born with a monstrous talent, he definitely has an unimaginable background. He actually wants to kill him. The 100 Battle Sword technique is an 8th grade king-level martial arts technique. Xie Jioshan has cultivated it for dozens of years and has already reached the perfection stage. This sword technique is really terrifying. At this moment, Longchen's dragon elephant force has turned into a sea of vital energy. Although it has increased slightly, it still can't withstand Xie Jioshan's current attack. As time goes by, Xie Jioshan's life force is almost completely overdrawn. His cultivation is close to the void return level. However, Longchen, who was standing in the same place, actually revealed a faint smile. The long sword in his right hand moved slightly and pierced through the air. An invisible wave slowly spread out. Pop! The moment the wave appeared, it was as if the entire world had quietened down. Wherever it passed, the wind stopped and the clouds stopped. Then, the wave became faster and faster. In an instant, it swept across the land within 1,000 meters of Longchen. When the wave touched the 8 rays of light, there was a series of sounds of dissipation. It was as if rain had touched a raging flame. The mighty sword was only left with a wisp of green smoke in the blink of an eye. The entire 100-mile valley seemed to have quietened down. Xie Jioshan also stopped in his tracks. Rumble! The mountain range, which was dozens of meters tall, suddenly collapsed. The broken parts were as smooth as a mirror. Countless huge trees were broken in the middle, and the upper part was the same. Looking down, a line of blood gradually became clear on Xie Jioshan's chest. His pupils gradually became dilated. The long sword in his hand fell with a loud crash, and he fell to the ground with a thump. The Guardian General, Xie Jioshan, had fallen. The Guardian General is dead. Dead? What's going on? What kind of sword technique was that? A major general in the 100-mile valley exclaimed. The people around him also revealed looks of fear. They frantically retreated. They were originally very far away from Longchen and Xie Jioshan, but now they were forced to retreat thousands of meters. The third prince, Qin Lai, who was originally attacking with all his might at the edge of the formation, could not help but stop his movements. Longchen had actually killed Xie Jioshan with a single sword strike. What was that sword strike just now? That's impossible. Even if he's at the soul formation stage, There's no way he can kill Xie Jiushan with a single sword strike. The first prince's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Qin Qing, who was standing at the top of the mountain, stared at Long Chen and murmured, "That sword technique is definitely not at the king stage. Who on earth is he?" Bang! At that moment, the ripples of the formation suddenly spread out. Many major generals and soldiers rushed out of the 100-Mile Valley in a panic. They looked at Long Chen from afar, and their eyes were filled with fear and reverence. "All soldiers, listen to my order. Prepare for battle." Qin Qing suddenly frowned. He commanded all the soldiers present from the top of the mountain. At the same time, he himself leapt into the valley. Tens of thousands of imperial guards followed closely behind him. Chapter 143. The first prince's fear after the formation was broken. Qin Qing led many generals and the princes to arrive. Under Qin Qing's orders, all the soldiers in the 100-Mile Valley surrounded Long Chen. Many of these people were Xie Jiushan's Jinyuan army, and each of them looked at Long Chen with murderous eyes. The imperial guards who were originally guarding the perimeter also arrived in an instant. In the blink of an eye, more than 100,000 soldiers surrounded the entire 100-Mile Valley. Long Chen gradually frowned. He had expected such a scene, but he was not afraid at all. With the power of the divine transformation stage, perhaps only the return to void stage cultivators could stop him. Seeing Qin Qing walking over, Long Chen's eyes narrowed and he said coldly, "You want to stop me?" Long Chen's voice was not loud, but it was like rolling thunder that went straight into everyone's mind. Even the soldiers with low cultivation turned pale and fell to the ground. For a moment, Qin Qing and the people closest to Long Chen all changed their expressions and retreated dozens of meters. What's with this strong will? Even if he's at the divine transformation stage, he's only at the initial stage. It's impossible for him to have such power. Qin Qing cried out involuntarily. Qin Lai stood to the side and stared blankly at Long Chen. The battle strength that Long Chen displayed today was too shocking. The sword in Long Chen's hand shook, and a gust of wind blew in all directions. A murderous aura spread out in all directions. The threat was self-evident. Long Chen did not take a small ruler of the Black Dragon Empire seriously. With his current strength, he could fight and retreat. Even thousands of soldiers and horses would not be able to stop him. Long Chen and Qin Qing did not have any enmity, but if he did not act wisely, he could not blame anyone else. The scene was in a deadlock. Countless soldiers were sweating. Long Chen's aura at this moment made them tremble with fear. Long Chen snorted coldly, turned around, and was about to leave. Just as he was about to move, a chill flashed through Qin Qing's face. Long Chen's strength had already reached the point where it could threaten the imperial authority. Moreover, the strength of 36 dracophants that Long Chen had cultivated was something that Qin Qing was rather envious of. "Father, you must not, this person's talent is extraordinary. He may be the blessing of the Black Dragon Empire." The third prince hurriedly rushed forward. Before Qin Qing could reply, the first prince stood out, and said in a deep voice, "This person's body exudes a strange aura, and he has no fear of the Empire. He must be strangled today. What's more, his strange technique is strange. If we can learn his strange martial technique." The first prince's words made the surrounding people's hearts burn with passion. The terrifying scene of Long Chen's strength at level 36 of the spiritual martial realm fighting against the late stage of the soul formation realm was still vivid in everyone's mind. If they could use him for themselves, it meant that they were strong. It had to be said that the first prince's words struck a chord in everyone's hearts. However, Qin Qing also knew that if he fought with Long Chen now, even if he could hold on until Long Chen's secret technique ended, the casualties would reach a level that he could not bear. "Who dares to attack my pill pagoda?" At this moment, a shout was heard. On the distant mountain peak, a figure led by Lu Sanwan flew over. "Master Long Chen is an elder of my pill pagoda. Who dares to attack him? My pill pagoda's once-in-a-thousand-years genius. How dare you?" The soldiers who were about to charge suddenly stopped. Qin Qing could not help but be startled. Lu Sanlan arrived first with Lu Yi and Yen Li on a flying demonic beast. He stood straight in front of Qin Qing. Qin Qing's face immediately darkened. He said coldly, "Lu Sanlan, although you're the Alchemist Guild's president, you don't have much control in my Black Dragon Empire. My empire and the Alchemist Guild have always minded our own business. Do you want to break this rule?" The Alchemist Guild was spread across the entire continent and countless countries. It was rumored that the Pill Pagoda existed in all the major sects, low-level countries, and even the legendary Divine Kingdoms. Lu Sanlan stared at Longchen from afar and replied, "Longchen is my Pill Pagoda's king-stage alchemist. He's also the master of my daughter, Lu Yi. If you dare to use your army today, you'll be making an enemy of my Pill Pagoda." Lu Sanlan was neither servile nor overbearing. It was as if he did not care about Qin Qing at all. Qin Qing's face turned purple and white. Soon after, he started coughing. Lu Sanlan's threat was not groundless. It was rumored that there was a country under the 5 major sects that was far more powerful than the Black Dragon Empire. Because they were dissatisfied with the Pill Pagoda's price control, a war broke out and an alchemist guild was destroyed in a short period of time. However, the consequences that followed were something that no one had expected. That was, the 5 great sects attacked at the same time and destroyed the entire country. Since then, no one dared to challenge the dignity of the Alchemist Guild. The alchemist guilds of various countries were only responsible for recruiting alchemists. They did not participate in the war between the empires. On the other hand, Longchen felt that his cultivation was becoming more and more unstable. He knew that the sea of qi created by the secret technique was about to dissipate. He stared at Qin Qing and said in a deep voice, "Once the path of immortality opens, I'll represent the Black Dragon Empire and go to the 5 major sections. I won't be reluctant to leave your empire. However, if you persist in going about things the wrong way, I'll wash the imperial capital with blood today." Longchen's words were incomparably cold. At this moment, he no longer had the time to dawdle. If Qin Qing still did not answer within 10 breaths, he would use the last bit of his strength to kill him and intimidate the entire Blue Dragon Empire. Qin Qing was silent. In the end, he looked at the already dead Xie Jioshan. Longchen's casual sword strike made him feel cold all over. If Longchen really disregarded everything and washed the imperial capital with blood, would they be able to stop him? After a moment, Qin Qing coughed violently again. He shook his head and said, "Sir, hope you keep your word. Your name will naturally be on the path of immortality." Qin Qing waved his hand and made all the soldiers open a path. Lu Sanlan directly said to Longchen, "Little friend Longchen, feel free to come over. As long as you're in my Pill Pagoda, no one will be able to hurt you." After saying that, he stepped on a flying demonic beast and directly flew towards Longchen. Yen Li and Lu Yi stood on either side of Longchen to protect him. Then, the 3 of them quickly left the 100-mile valley under everyone's gaze. Many of the Pill Pagoda's elders snorted and left. Qin Qing's face was gloomy. He led many generals and soldiers back to the imperial capital. Countless people were on tenterhooks. No one had expected that today's military exercise would turn out like this. After everyone left, the 3rd prince and Oyezi still stood in the 100-mile valley. "Oyezi, quickly send a message to my master. This Longchen's ability has already exceeded the scope of our abilities. This person is too strange." "That's right, tell my master that this person has the ability to condense 36 dragon elephants," the 1st prince said in a low voice. After the power that Longchen displayed in the battle between Xie Jioshan and Longchen, the 1st prince felt an unprecedented threat. He had to deal with this matter as soon as possible. Otherwise, once Longchen truly stepped into the divine transformation stage, there would be endless trouble in the future. Chapter 144. God transforming pill in the blink of an eye. Half a month had passed since Longchen returned to the Pill Pagoda. In this half a month, the entire Black Dragon Empire seemed to have fallen into a storm. Every day, every night, there would be a name being spread. that Longchen really has 3 heads and 6 arms, and the strength of dozens of dragons and elephants? Isn't that so? It's said that he even killed General Xia, who was in the late stage of the god-transforming realm, 3 heads and 6 arms. I heard that he's 10 feet tall. Don't talk nonsense. The path of ascension will open in a few months. At that time, the experts of the various empires will gather. If he's really that strong, you can naturally meet him. Since Longchen's battle in the 100-Mile Valley, everything about him had spread to several countries. The more the news spread, the more ridiculous it became. Inside the pill pagoda, Longchen had been taking pills for the past 10 days. Until today, he had recovered about 70 to 80% of his strength. That day, the secret technique had exhausted all the spiritual energy in his major acupoints. For the past half a month, he had been suffering from the feeling of emptiness in his body almost every day. In a few months, I will set foot on the path of ascension. The day when I meet Big Brother again in this life is not far. The 5 great sects control all the resources here. Once I enter the 5 great sects, it will be the day when a carp leaps over the dragon gate. Longchen muttered to himself and pushed the door open. Under the scorching sun, 2 willow trees swayed. The green branches reflected mottled shadows. More than 10 people under the trees saw Longchen walk out and quickly went to greet him. Master Longchen. Master Longchen. These people all looked at Longchen with reverence. Longchen looked at them and smiled faintly. For the past half a month, the pills he took every day were all provided by the pill pagoda. Naturally, Longchen couldn't accept people's kindness for nothing. Many alchemists had stepped into the king stage because of Lu Yi and another person's guidance, so many people came every day. On the other hand, Longchen patiently used his inherited knowledge of alchemy to answer their questions one by one. However, there were simply too many people coming and going. In the end, Longchen set a rule of 10 people per day. Most of these people were middle-aged men, and there were many elders among them. They were all on the verge of a breakthrough. As Longchen waved his hand, the 10 of them handed over the pills they had refined in advance to Longchen for inspection. Lu Tsanglan, Lu Yi, and Yen Li were already used to seeing this scene from afar. Longchen's actions made Lu Tsanglan even happier. In just a short 10 days, the Black Dragon Empire's Alchemist Guild had an additional 7 king-stage alchemists. Teacher Yen Li, have you thought it through? If you agree to support my daughter, the Pill Tower will be your home in the future. Lu Tsanglan asked Yen Li. Seeing Yen Li shake her head again, Lu Tsanglan frowned slightly and suddenly said in a low voice, as long as instructor Yen Li agrees to this, I can tell you the cause of your clan's disaster. Yen Li's originally delicate and pretty face suddenly froze as she cried out involuntarily, you know about this? Who did it? Oh Yezi. Lu Tsanglan said in a deep voice. Bang! A pill in Longchen's hand was suddenly crushed. Under the cover of his divine sense, he could clearly hear the conversation between Lu Tsanglan and the others. In the past few days, Lu Tsanglan had ordered people to inquire about Yen Li's background, and Longchen knew it clearly. However, he never thought that the result of Lu Tsanglan's investigation would actually be Yen Li's master, Oh Yezi. You're saying that the one who slaughtered my entire clan was my master. Yen Li staggered back a few steps, her entire face as pale as paper. Although many of Oyezi's actions were very shameless, she still felt grateful in her heart. After all, it was Oyezi who took her in when she was young and taught her the Tao of Erase. However, Lu Tsanglan's words now made her feel cold all over. Lu Tsanglan shook his head and sighed, explaining the matter from beginning to end clearly. It turned out that Yen Li's entire clan being slaughtered when she was young was not an isolated case. In fact, at least 2 or 3 of Oyezi's many disciples had suffered the same fate. Everyone knew about Oyezi's so-called fetishes and disciples. Although Lu Tsanglan did not know the specific reasons, he could guess most of them. First, it was Yen Li's talent in Erase. Second, it was naturally Oyezi who took a fancy to Yen Li's beauty when she was young, evoking his perverted fetish. Unfortunately, even though he had raised Yen Li to her current state, he was still unable to obtain her. Yanli felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave for a moment, but after a moment, she suddenly took a deep breath and said in a cold voice, "I can help alchemy for the rest of my life, but I want to kill Oyezi with my own hands." Lu Zhanglan nodded when he heard this, as if he had been prepared for this for a long time, and quickly said, "Although killing Oyezi will cost you some money, if you can fight for a future for my daughter, it will be worth it." Not long after, Longchen dismissed the 10 people and walked towards Lu Zhanglan. He cupped his fists and said, "My cultivation has now been restored. Thank you for taking care of me these past few days, President." Lu Zhanglan hurriedly waved his hand. "You're welcome, you're welcome. Since you're Lui's master, then your matters are my pill tower's matters." When Lui saw Longchen walking over, she intimately walked over and grabbed his arm. She said playfully, "Little master, he has recently refined 2 types of second-grade king step pills." Longchen nodded. Lui's talent in alchemy could be said to be top-notch. If he had Yanli's help, his future would be limitless. Yanli's future would also be limitless if she followed Lui. "President Lu, Longchen has a request." Longchen thought of the brief feeling he had when he reached the soul formation stage and said to Lu Zhanglan. Lu Zhanglan nodded, indicating for Longchen to continue. Longchen didn't hold back and said directly, "I want the soul formation pill. I wonder if the pill tower has it." The soul formation pill was extremely rare. Although it was only a 3rd-grade king step pill, the refining method and the coarse spiritual medicine used to refine it had long been lost in the long river of history. This pill could allow a person at the completion stage of the spiritual martial realm to have a 70% chance of refining the dragon and elephant acupoints, condensing the sea of qi, and stepping into the soul formation stage. It could be said to be priceless. After a moment, he shook his head and said in a deep voice, "The pill tower doesn't have this pill, but I know where it is, and there's more than one. To be precise, it should be in the hands of some people. Just say it." Longchen didn't expect that the pill tower didn't even have this pill, so he continued to ask. Although the soul formation pill can no longer be refined, it's not extinct. A year ago, 3 people obtained 3 bottles from an ancient place of inheritance. It's estimated that there were a total of 15 soul formation pills in the 3 bottles, and these 3 people were all from the Deqian Empire. Longchen frowned slightly. He didn't expect that the soul formation pill wasn't in the Black Dragon Empire. The Deqian Empire was located to the west of the Black Dragon Empire, and its national strength far surpassed the Black Dragon Empire. If it wasn't for the 5 great sects suppression, the Black Dragon Empire would have been nibbled away. Those 3 people? Longchen continued to ask. Chapter 145. Transnational challenged the 3 strongest people on the heaven ranking. When Longchen heard this, he couldn't help but frown. He immediately thought of the dazzling divine palace in his mind and the true dragon inside. He didn't want to wait any longer. He had to step into the soul formation realm in the shortest time possible and completely open the mysterious area in his mind. To completely clear the fog in his mind, he had to be at least in the soul formation realm. After Longchen's brief peek, he returned to the spirit martial realm and the mysterious area was once again covered in fog. But Longchen knew that it was a dragon palace. And inside the dragon palace was the spirit of a true dragon. If his guess wasn't wrong, then it was the heavenly dragon vein that had never appeared on the Bloodline Azure Sky ranking. As long as he merged with the spirit of the true dragon, he would definitely be able to obtain the heavenly dragon vein. Right now I have an unprecedented strength of 36 dragons and elephants. If I want to step into the soul formation realm, then opening my Qi Sea is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. This soul formation pill must be obtained, otherwise I don't know when I'll be able to step into the soul formation realm. Longchen thought in his heart and immediately made up his mind. Lu Zhanglan looked at Longchen's expression and guessed a bit. He shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "Although your battle strength is strong, you must not underestimate these 3 people. They all have ancient bloodlines, especially the number one on the heaven ranking, the Wind Marquis. You must treat them with caution. Longchen nodded slightly. Since Lu Tsanglan reminded him like this, it meant that these three people had strength that far surpassed normal people. Moreover, the strength of people with ancient bloodlines couldn't be measured with common sense. This was also the reason why Longchen was so passionate about the heavenly dragon vein. I asked the president to prepare a flying mount for me. I will head to the Big Dry Empire today. Longchen said lightly. Then Longchen's right hand moved and took out a jade slip. The array recorded all the way up to the 9th grade of the Emperor realm. After that, there were many array explanations. Longchen raised his hand and placed the jade slip in front of Yanli. As for the method to refine the pill, Longchen wasn't afraid of it being leaked. At the very least, Lu Tsanglan would do a good job of keeping it a secret. Because if this matter were to spread, it would be extremely harmful to his daughter. Moreover, refining crack pills didn't just require alchemy, it also required a similar level of cultivation in formations. Just this alone was enough to make Lu Tsanglan keep a respectful distance from crack pills. If Longchen hadn't obtained the 2 great inheritances, he probably wouldn't have been able to refine the crack pill. After checking it, Yanli's expression changed greatly. She asked, "Why are you doing this? This thing is too precious. I can't take it." Longchen waved his hand and said, "The things in this jade slip only reach the Emperor rank. If you want to advance further, it will depend on your luck. This thing is not only for you, but also for Lu Yi to refine pills. After all, if your cultivation and formations can't keep up with ease in the future, it will be even more difficult for her to break through." After Longchen finished speaking, seeing that Yanli was about to say something, he moved his feet and turned around to leave. Lu Tsanglan stared blankly at the jade slip in Yanli's hand. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. A jade slip that could reach the Emperor rank. If this thing was taken out, Oyezi would probably crawl over to beg for it. For hours later, Longchen sat on a flying demonic beast and set off from the imperial capital. He headed straight for the Deqian Empire in the west. After half a month, Longchen finally arrived at the imperial capital of the Deqian Empire. It had to be said that the imperial capital of the Deqian Empire was far more powerful than the Black Dragon Empire. Just the city walls alone were more than 10 meters higher than the Black Dragon Empire. The entire imperial capital was filled with martial arts. Along the way, there were cases of martial artists fighting with each other. After Longchen arrived at the Deqian Empire, he immediately went to the alchemist guild in the Deqian Empire. There were alchemist guilds in every empire. Even the facilities inside were almost the same. After stepping into the Pill Pagoda, Longchen even felt that he was still in the Black Dragon Empire. "Please help me inform your president that Longchen requests an audience," Longchen said to the receptionist. The receptionist was stunned at first. Soon after, she saw the 3 pill cauldron badges on Longchen's chest. Her expression changed and she nodded repeatedly. 3 pill cauldron badges. That meant that he was a king-rank alchemist. How old was this young man in front of her? The tall Cheongsam woman in the receptionist's heart was filled with disbelief. After waiting for a while, the woman brought over a middle-aged man with a goatee with a big belly. The middle-aged man's originally enthusiastic face suddenly froze when he saw Longchen. Soon after, he asked doubtfully, "You are the alchemist grandmaster that Lu Tsanglan mentioned?" Longchen frowned slightly, but he still nodded. Before coming, Lu Tsanglan used a communication talisman to inform the Alchemist Guild branch to receive Longchen. Otherwise, it would be difficult to find the top 3 powerhouses on the heaven roll in the Deqian Empire. The middle-aged man glanced back and forth at Longchen. Then, his gaze fell on the pill cauldron badge on his chest. He frowned deeply and muttered, "I didn't expect Lu Tsanglan to be telling the truth. You are actually so young. He even told me that you are an alchemist grandmaster whose attainments in the alchemy Dao are not below his." The man's expression was arrogant. With his goatee and big belly, it was hard to believe that he was the president of the Deqian Empire's Alchemist Guild. 3 pill cauldron badges. King rank alchemist? The president with the goatee asked with a strange expression. Longchen still nodded. He didn't want to lower himself to the president's level. After all, he came here today for the God Transformation pill in the hands of the top 3 on the heaven roll. He didn't care whether the president believed in his talent in alchemy or not. Are you done asking? My cultivation in the alchemy Dao has nothing to do with you. I only came here for the whereabouts of the top 3 on the heaven roll. Longchen asked. Top 3 on the heaven roll? When Longchen's voice fell, whether it was the president with the goatee, the waitress in the Cheongsam, or the people walking beside them, they couldn't help but stop in their tracks. The goatee asked doubtfully, why are you looking for the top 3 on the heaven roll? Are you going to challenge them? I advise you to hurry back to the Black Dragon Empire. You definitely can't defeat the 3 of them. If you aren't willing to help, I'll just find another place. There's no need to say so much. Longchen said in a deep voice. F***ck, this person actually came to my Deqian Empire to challenge the heaven roll. He's actually prepared to challenge the top 3. This guy really thinks highly of himself. I don't think he thinks highly of himself. He just doesn't want to live anymore. I'm afraid that this young man won't even be able to withstand one move from the Black Widow in 3rd place. Haha. The people around them sneered. The heaven roll rankings existed in every empire, but generally, cross-border challenges, whether it was the earth roll or the heaven roll, would only be held at a specific time. There were very few people like Longchen who directly crossed the border to challenge. You don't know what's good for you. Since you want to die, then I'll tell you the simplest way. If you're a heaven roll expert, then just set up an arena on the street. When the time comes, as long as the experts on the heaven roll hear about it, they'll go up on the arena. If you really have the strength to challenge the 3 of them, then fight to your heart's content. Chapter 146. Heaven List challenged the president of Deqian Empire's Alchemist Guild looked at Longchen mockingly and shook his head. You'd better hurry back to the Black Dragon Empire. You don't even have the qualifications to challenge the Heaven List at your age. Go back to where you came from. Everyone shook their heads and secretly thought that Longchen didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Ever since the top 3 of the Heaven List returned from an ancient secret cave a year ago, they had jumped from the 50th place to the top 3. Since then, they had not lost a single battle. It was said that they had obtained many ancient elixirs and even martial arts techniques. Their strength could be said to be at the top of the younger generation in various countries. They had even been selected to be the seeded contestants of the 5 great sects on the path of immortal ascension. Under the mocking gazes of the crowd, Longchen left in a huff. He came to the Alchemist Guild to find out where the top 3 of the Heaven List were. Now that he knew how to meet them, things would be easier. The 3 of them had obtained the God Transformation pills a year ago. Now that they were all God Transformation realm cultivators, they didn't have much need for these pills. With the rarity of these pills, they definitely wouldn't use all of them. On the streets, there was an endless stream of people shouting from all directions. With a flash of light, a piece of parchment appeared in Longchen's hand. Then, he wrote a letter of challenge. With a flash of light at his fingertips, the piece of parchment stabbed into the wall like a sword and floated down with the wind. After doing all this, Longchen didn't hesitate. He unsheathed his sword and a dangerous aura swept out in all directions. The expressions of the surrounding people changed drastically. They felt their hair stand on end and quickly retreated. With Longchen as the center, the surrounding streets were suddenly cleared of dozens of meters of space. Only then did everyone turn around to look. Black Dragon Empire's Longchen, ranked 43rd on the Heaven List, challenges the top 3 of the Deqian Empire. Life and death are not allowed in the Heaven List battle. Everyone read the parchment word by word and their expressions sank. Isn't the 43rd on the Heaven List Kai Huan? Who is this Longchen? Could it be that he defeated Kai Huan? How old is this guy? I don't know what method this brat used, but no matter what, he's simply courting death today. Even an idiot from the Black Dragon Empire dares to challenge my Great Chan Empire. He's truly courting death. Arrogant. He actually dares to set up an arena on the streets of my Great Chan Empire. He's just a fellow ranked 43rd. I think he won't even last 3 rounds and he still wants to challenge the top 3 of the heaven ranking. One of the people from the Alchemist Guild hurriedly reported to the pot-bellied branch president, that brat really doesn't know what's good for him, and went to open the stage. He even directly declared that he wants to challenge the top 3 rankers of the heavenly list. Since this brat wants to die, it's none of our business. Don't go and watch. I reckon that any random person will send him away. It's fine as long as he doesn't die here. If he dies, I really won't be able to explain it to Lutsong Lan. The middle-aged man seemed to be very bored. After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the higher levels of the Pill Tower. On the streets, more and more onlookers gathered and the surrounding streets and restaurants were filled with people. The sounds of ridicule never stopped. A young man from the Black Dragon Empire who was ranked 43rd on the heaven ranking actually wanted to challenge the top 3 of the Big Dry Empire's heaven ranking. This was simply the biggest joke in the world. In a short period of time, Longchen became a scene in the Imperial City. However, the people who passed by couldn't stop sneering. Longchen simply closed his eyes and turned a deaf ear to everyone's words. Time passed by minute. In the blink of an eye, several hours had passed. Finally, a one-eyed beast-clothed man with a crew cut walked out from the crowd. Everyone make way. It's said that there's an expert from the Black Dragon Empire who is ranked 43rd on the heaven ranking here. The man's remaining eye suddenly flashed with a cold light. However, when he saw Longchen in front of the parchment, he suddenly froze. Soon after, he asked with a strange expression, "You're Longchen, ranked 43rd on the heaven ranking?" Longchen opened his eyes. After glancing at the man, he casually nodded. A few days ago, he defeated Kai Huan at the General Zhenyuan Mansion and replaced the 43rd position on the heaven ranking. Now, it should have been recorded by the organizations in charge of the various empires. I didn't expect Kai Huan to be defeated by a young man in his 20s. How laughable. But it's good. This saves me a lot of effort. Today, I'll defeat you and directly take the 43rd position from 45th on the heaven ranking. As the man spoke, he walked toward Longchen. It's a pity that you can't defeat me. However, just as the one-eyed man finished speaking, his vision suddenly blurred. Longchen's long sword had already attacked his chest. The man's reaction wasn't fast. A mace had appeared in his hand out of nowhere and directly blocked the attack. At the same time, a powerful divine transformation stage cultivation suddenly spread out. Bang! Then, in the next moment, the one-eyed man's hill-like body flew out like a meteor, crashing heavily into the wall on the other side of the street. The wall, which was several meters long, shattered into countless pieces in an instant, burying him underneath. Hiss! When the people of the Great Chan Empire saw this scene, they all gasped and their eyes were like pearls. Damn, it's only been a few breaths. This guy is only so strong and he's already been sent flying? 45th on the heaven ranking? Isn't this guy called the One-Eyed Beast King? Damn, I think he's even worse than a rabbit. He's only 2 ranks lower and he was sent flying with 1 strike. He's really a disgrace to the Great Chan Empire. Longchen put away his sword and closed his eyes again. Before he had broken through, he could already defeat Kai Huan. Now that he had the strength of 36 dragons and elephants, those who were 2 ranks lower than Kai Huan were even less of a match for him. Kid, you tricked me. I'm not ready yet. The one-eyed man stood up from the pile of stones. His face was ashen and he was covered in stone chips. He was in a sorry state and shouted in a low voice, as if he wanted to regain some face. Unfortunately, Longchen didn't move at all. He still stood in the same place and didn't even open his eyes. Kid, just you wait. Since you shamelessly want to challenge the top 3 of the heaven ranking, I'll create more opportunities for you. There are at least 10 experts in the top 30 of the heaven ranking in Xianmen restaurant. I'll help you find them all. When the time comes, don't run away. Let me see how you die. The one-eyed man saw that Long Chen didn't move and his whole body trembled with anger. However, he didn't dare to approach Long Chen anymore. He could only leave behind a series of harsh words and leave. Kid, don't act tough. Hurry up and run. Those guys are more than 10 ranks higher than you. If you stay, you'll be courting death. It's good enough to defeat one. Does this guy really want to challenge the top 3 of the heaven ranking? Don't meddle in other people's business. I want to see how many rounds this guy can last. Xianmen restaurant isn't far from here. I'm afraid he'll be there soon. There's a good show to watch. More and more people gathered in the surroundings. Once the news spread, the challengers came in an endless stream. Therefore, everyone was full of interest. After all, the heaven ranking battles weren't something that could be seen at any time. Moreover, this was a battle between 2 heaven ranking experts from 2 different countries. Get out of the way, get out of the way. The beast-skinned man rudely pushed away the crowd blocking the street. He then said to the 10 people behind him with a flattering smile, please take a look. This is the Black Dragon Empire's youngster who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He even wants to challenge the top 3 of the heaven ranking. Chapter 147. Crawling back, the streets were filled with people. Whether it was in the restaurant or on the roofs, there were people everywhere. Since the one-eyed man brought the dozen people behind him, the crowd was in an uproar. Especially when the silver-white satin young man spoke, the noisy scene calmed down a lot. Long Chen slowly opened his eyes and looked at the dozen soul transformation realm experts behind the young man. A smile appeared on his face. It seemed that the news would soon reach the ears of the top 3 on the heaven leaderboard. Hearing the young man's words, Long Chen replied indifferently, what kind of ending can there be? The heaven leaderboard challenge, regardless of life or death. Hearing Long Chen's words, the young man's face became extremely cold, as if he was walking on thin ice. The surrounding people were shocked by Long Chen's words and began to discuss in whispers. Is this guy an idiot? He even dares to provoke young Master Yu, who is ranked 8th on the heaven leaderboard. He must be tired of living. Ever since young Master Yu entered the heaven leaderboard, he has been undefeated in more than 10 battles. All of his opponents were dismembered. Don't tell me that this guy doesn't even know him? I think this kid is a hothead. Let alone young Master Yu, I'm afraid he doesn't even know who is on the heaven leaderboard. At the corner of the street, a pot-bellied middle-aged man walked out. The moment he saw Long Chen, his goatee trembled. He never thought that Long Chen would still be undefeated and attract so many heaven leaderboard experts. This kid actually has some strength. I underestimated him. He actually defeated the one-eyed man with one sword. However, he will definitely die if he encounters these people. Their rankings. The goatee president suddenly muttered. Although I don't have much interaction with Lu Tsangwan, we are both branch presidents of the Alchemist Guild. He told me many times to take care of this person. At least, he can't die on the street in front of my pill tower. The goatee president's face was ashen. Seeing that Long Chen and young Master Yu had reached a state of mutual hostility, he hurriedly walked up. He shouted in a deep voice, Long Chen, have you caused enough trouble? How dare you speak to young Master Yu in such a manner? Quickly apologize and I'm sure young Master Yu will be magnanimous and let you leave the great Qian Empire. Long Chen looked at the goatee president and frowned. He said in a deep voice, I have no plans to leave the great Qian Empire. At least, I won't leave before I see the top 3 on the heaven list. After that, Long Chen paused. Also, I have nothing to do with you. Leave your preaching to others. Long Chen's voice was slightly cold. Ever since he had entered the Pill Pagoda, this person had looked down on him. Now, he was acting like an elder and ordering him to apologize. This made Long Chen very unhappy. The goateed old man's face immediately turned ashen. He was flustered and exasperated. Just as he was about to say something, he heard young Master Yu chuckle beside him. "President Yang, I originally gave him a way out because of you. But now, it seems like he has no choice but to die." Young Master Yu's face suddenly turned serious. He said in a deep voice, "Ding Shi, go and break his legs for me. It's best if you leave him alive and let him crawl back to the Black Dragon Empire." As young Master Yu's voice fell, a strange man with light gray fur walked out from behind him. The man's facial features were extremely small, as if they were squeezed together. It made people feel gloomy and terrifying just by looking at him. "Brat, weren't you very arrogant just now? Let's see how you'll die now." The one-eyed beast-skin man sneered. President Yang snorted coldly. He stared coldly at Long Chen and said in a deep voice, "Since you're courting death, then don't blame me. When the time comes, don't kneel down and beg me to save you. The evil you brought upon yourself is the hardest to bear." At the same time, the remaining people behind young Master Yu all stared mockingly at Long Chen. It was as if they were waiting for him to be ruthlessly tortured. Ding Shi, ranked 28 on the Heaven Leaderboard. He possesses the Limestone bloodline. His defensive power can be said to be peerless. It's said that his cultivation has reached the 3rd level of the Divine Transformation realm. He once withstood 3 attacks from a 6th level Divine Transformation realm cultivator without suffering any injuries. This guy is also a killing god. It's said that the people who fought with him all had their limbs smashed to pieces. Therefore, after he stepped into the 28th level of the Heaven Leaderboard, almost no one dared to challenge him. It's not just him. Look behind young Master Yu. These people are all ranked in the top 30 of the Heaven Leaderboard. Moreover, they are all infamous. Ding Shi walked up slowly. He stared at Long Chen and casually said, "Are you going to stretch out your legs yourself, or do you want me to cripple your legs and break one of your arms? When the time comes, you'll have to crawl back to the Black Dragon Empire with one hand. I also have an idea. Do you want to hear it?" Long Chen stared at Ding Shi and sneered. "This is the De Qian Empire. There are so many people here who can destroy you. Then, I'll cripple all your limbs. How about it?" Ding Shi's wrinkled face suddenly twisted. He stared at Long Chen and said coldly, "You've completely angered me. Today, you'll have a good taste of the pain of being smashed to pieces." As soon as Ding Shi finished speaking, his left and right hands moved in the air. 2 rays of spiritual light flashed and 2 giant hammers appeared. 1,000 hammer 100 refinement. Ding Shi's twin hammers moved left and right, alternating like shadows. The sound was like the beating of a drum. Rays of gray spiritual light blasted towards Long Chen's legs. Long Chen moved his right hand and slashed out with the hornless dragon sword. 9 transformation sword aura. Rays of sword light shot out rapidly. The blade flashed with a chilling light that made one's heart palpitate. In an instant, all the shadows of the hammers in the sky were destroyed. Then, the sword slashed on Ding Shi's chest and diagonally towards his left leg. The speed was so fast that it was shocking. The surrounding onlookers cried out in surprise. This sword strike was truly breathtaking to the crowd. I didn't expect this kid's swordsmanship to be so strong. I'm afraid his swordsmanship has already reached the level of perfection. Moreover, it seems like he hasn't stepped into the divine transformation stage yet. Is he hiding his strength? However, this alone won't be enough to defeat Ding Shi. Young Master Yu seemed to be a little surprised. He stared at Long Chen and frowned slightly. Under everyone's gaze, Ding Shi, who was hit by Long Chen's sword, was unharmed except for a small line of blood on his body. Then, Ding Shi said coldly, "I didn't expect you to have some strength. However, if this is all, you're just a piece of trash in front of me." As soon as Ding Shi finished speaking, layers of gray stone armor began to condense on his skin. There was a dazzling gray light coming from it. Under his feet, the ground even cracked like a spider web. Bloodline power? Long Chen stared at Ding Shi and said calmly, "However, its level is too low. It's just a joke to me." Chapter 148. So much for the heaven list. Dingshi possessed the power of the bloodline. He rarely met an opponent at the third level of the divine transformation realm. Moreover, he had an extremely powerful defense. As Dingshi rushed out, every step he took caused the ground to shatter inch by inch. As he ran, gray light scattered in all directions, emitting bursts of rumbling. Bang! The two giant hammers came crashing down on Long Chen. The huge hammer streaked across the sky, and the gray light fell down like a meteor. It fiercely fell on the ground, but Long Chen had already disappeared from his original position. Boom! Boom! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They felt that after Dingshi used the power of his bloodline, it was as if he had won a battle. His battle prowess had soared, and this hammer strike was truly earth-shattering. Many people even retreated a little. On the left. Seeing Long Chen disappear, Dingshi did not have the slightest fear. Seeing Long Chen's sword stabbing towards his left shoulder, he suddenly turned around. However, something unexpected happened. Dingshi didn't try to block or dodge Long Chen's attacks. Instead, he swung his hammers towards Long Chen's shoulders. Cries of surprise rang out incessantly, and young Master Yu couldn't help but sneer. Dingshi relied on the power of his bloodline, and his body's defense had reached an astonishing level. Long Chen's sword might not be able to injure him, but once his two hammers hit, Long Chen's arms would most likely be broken. Spirit-breaking sword. Surprisingly, Chang Chen did not retreat at all. Instead, the sword in his hand started to generate a strong gust of wind. Since his speed had increased once again, his sword essence of gale had been fully displayed. Whoosh! Blood splattered everywhere as Dingshi let out a shrill cry. His entire right arm had been pierced through by Long Chen's sword, and blood gushed out. His left hand was also clamped down by Long Chen's left hand, unable to move an inch. Is this the power of your bloodline that you are so proud of? That's all. Long Chen sneered. Along with Long Chen's voice, the gray light around Dingshi's wound receded like a receding tide. At the same time, the surrounding people's faces were filled with horror. Even young Master Yu's face became gloomy. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Although Dingshi's strength was nothing in his eyes, his defensive ability was second to none. Long Chen's sword actually pierced through Dingshi's shoulder, which was somewhat inconceivable. How could this be? Dingshi's bloodline power can even block an attack from a late divine transformation stage cultivator. How could this brat break it with a single sword strike? Unbelievable. Not only did it pierce through his shoulder, it seems to have completely suppressed his bloodline power. Did Dingshi lose? It would have been great if he had just dodged. I'm afraid even he himself didn't think that this young man would be able to defeat him with a single sword strike. How could this be? Even Dingshi himself couldn't help but exclaim after his death. Perhaps no one knew better than Dingshi why Long Chen's sword strike had such an effect. This was because this sword strike carried an unparalleled amount of elemental energy, which destroyed all the bloodline power in his body. At this moment, even the spiritual energy in his dantian was suppressed. Enough! At this moment, young Master Yu finally couldn't help but say, I didn't expect you to have some strength. Quickly release Dingshi. Young Master Yu's voice was very cold. It was as if he felt that Long Chen had made him lose face in the imperial capital. He even couldn't help but curse Dingshi in his heart for being a good-for-nothing. He actually lost so thoroughly. When Long Chen heard this arrogant and commanding tone, the corner of his mouth became even wider. Not only did he not pull out the sword that pierced through Dingshi's right shoulder, but he also directly cut through it. Slash! Dingshi's right arm was cut off at the shoulder. At the same time, young Master Yu's right leg swept across Dingshi's dantian. The force of tens of thousands of kilograms sent Dingshi flying like a cannonball. Accompanied by a mournful scream, he landed heavily on the street dozens of meters away. There was a huge crater on the ground that was a few meters deep. This scene happened almost at the same time as young Master Yu's voice sounded. Everyone around didn't even have the slightest reaction. However, after the explosion on the ground, everyone gasped and stared at Longchen in horror. Now that Ding Shi's cultivation was crippled and his right arm was cut off, he was still a good-for-nothing. This was simply a naked provocation. At the same time, young Master Yu's face was as cold as ice, purple and green. President Yang looked at Longchen and sneered. In his eyes, Longchen's actions were simply suicide. I wonder who young Master Yu is going to invite to cripple my limbs and chase me back to the Black Dragon Empire? Longchen said coldly. Young Master Yu's eyes were like hooks as he stared at Longchen. After a long while, he suddenly laughed and said, very good, very good. Since you want to challenge me, I want to see how many of the people behind me can you defeat. Go up one by one and cripple his limbs. It's best if you pull out his tongue too. Everyone present kept quiet as they noticed young Master Yu's anger. Today, unless Longchen didn't lose a single battle, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. In front of everyone, Longchen didn't retreat. Instead, he raised his sword and stared at young Master Yu and said, so the so-called young Master Yu is just a sharp-tongued person. You called these small fries to their deaths and you're waiting for the last battle to come up? But no matter, since I'm here to challenge you. I have nothing to fear. The surrounding people were in an uproar. The faces of the 7 or 8 people behind young Master Yu darkened. Every one of them was an expert ranked in the top 30 of the heaven ranking and had quite a reputation in the Deqian Empire. But now, in Longchen's words, they were just small fries. One of them stood up and said coldly, young Master Yu is cultivating a secret technique. If not, killing you would only take a thought. But that's good. You're just a clown. Why would young Master Yu need to personally deal with you? As he spoke, he walked in front of Longchen. A 7-foot-long broadsword appeared in his right hand and he slashed straight at Longchen. As the broadsword fell, the light from the broadsword streaked across the sky and brought along countless flames. It was extremely terrifying. Flame feather chain slash. As his voice fell, the broadsword danced like the wind. This person leaped up like a bird and countless shadows of the broadsword continuously appeared. Boom! 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 In an instant, the ground was filled with devastation. Every flash of the broadsword left a 10-meter-long crack on the ground. Smoke and dust billowed as a flash of sword light soared into the sky. The hornless dragon sword in Longchen's hand had actually left his hand. It pierced through his chest from bottom to top like a meteor that couldn't be blocked. The second one. Plop! When this person's corpse fell from the sky, his eyes were filled with shock. He used this technique to go on a rampage among those of the same level. Who would have thought that he would be killed by a single sword strike? He didn't even have the chance to unleash dozens of attacks. Chapter 149. Shaking the Deqian Empire within the imperial capital of the Deqian Empire, in the royal hunting grounds. A painful roar came from the dark cave. After a long time, a woman with disheveled hair walked out. The woman licked the blood from the corner of her mouth. Under her disheveled hair, there were dark purple veins on the right side of her face that made people's heart palpitate. Upon closer inspection, they looked like strange eyes. Has young Master Yu arrived? This time, he said that he could at least find a way to kill a few heaven-ranking experts and give me their flesh. The woman's voice was hoarse but not hoarse. However, it had a tone that made people's hair stand on end. A silver-armored soldier walked over and replied respectfully, I'm afraid that young Master Yu has encountered some trouble. It is said that there is a young man from the Black Dragon Empire on the streets of the West City. He issued a challenge and threatened to challenge you and the other 2 heaven-ranking experts. Oh? Interesting. It has been a long time since someone dared to challenge the 3 of us. How are the results? It's best if you don't kill him and bring him to me. The woman's words had a hint of bloodthirstiness. The soldier paused for a moment and said, You should go and take a look at the situation yourself. According to the report of the scouts, 7 of the people that young Master Yu brought have already been killed. that Long Chen's name has already shaken the entire imperial capital. Not only in the royal hunting grounds, this scene was also happening in 2 other places within the imperial capital. Long Chen, who was ranked 43 on the Heaven ranking, had challenged several Heaven ranking experts in the Deqian Empire in a single day. Furthermore, the news of him challenging the top 3 on the Heaven ranking had finally spread throughout the imperial capital. Imperial capital, West City, on the streets. At this moment, the entire West City was congested. Within the imperial capital, people from all directions were gathering here. There were even people who used the power of arrays to broadcast the scene here. On the streets, there were close to 10 corpses lying on the ground. Every one of them had unwillingness and shock in their eyes. Who is this kid? The corpses on the ground are all Heaven ranking's top 30 experts. You're the one who squeezed in. Let me tell you, this guy is from the Black Dragon Empire. He was originally ranked 47 on the Heaven ranking, but now he is ranked 13. It's not just the top 13. Look at the person with the ugliest expression right now. That's young Master Yu, who is ranked 8th on the heavenly ranking. It seems like he kicked an iron plate today. That's right. So many people he brought with him were all killed one by one. It's simply a loss of face for him. You guys didn't see the scene at the beginning. TSK. In the last few battles, those few people were forced to fight by young Master Yu. The sounds of discussion were endless like tidewater. Long Chen's successive battles without a single defeat caused everyone to be extremely shocked. There were even many people who revealed extremely worshipful gazes. On the Heaven ranking, there was no one who could rise more than 30 ranks in a single day. Of course, that was excluding the top 3 of the Heaven ranking that the entire Great Qian Empire was proud of. Win Marquis, Jian Shan, and the Black Widow. The 3 of them had charged from the 50s of the Heaven roll to the top 3 in one fell swoop. At that time, the Big Dry Empire's emperor had conferred them nobility titles. Beside young Master Yu, the Big Dry Empire's Pill Tower's President Yang's expression was incomparably gloomy and extremely ashen. Because this place was too close to the Pill Tower, every word and action of his was clearly seen by the Pill Tower's members. His ridicule of Long Chen was also vivid in everyone's mind. But now, Long Chen had displayed an unimaginable battle strength. President, it seems like the Black Dragon Empire's Pill Tower's President Lu Tsanglan wasn't talking nonsense. This kid really can't be judged by common sense. Perhaps his identity as a king-stage alchemist is also true. A Pill Tower's elder said to President Yang in a deep voice. President Yang fiercely looked at this person and said in a cold voice, "So what? He only defeated some deceiving people. Right now, as long as young Master Yu makes a move, he will definitely die." After pausing for a moment, he continued, "Moreover, this person is extremely arrogant. So what if he wins today? From the looks of the current situation, the top 3 on the Heaven roll have already noticed and will definitely come. When that time comes, do you think he will still be alive?" When the surrounding people heard this, they felt that what he said was quite reasonable. No matter how strong Long Chen was, how could he be compared to the top 3 on the Heaven roll? Perhaps, at this moment, it was impossible for him to defeat young Master Yu. On the other side, the Pill Tower's elder shook his head slightly and thought to himself, if it weren't for you not being willing to recommend him, would this kid have set up an arena here? However, at this moment, it was useless to say this. Everyone's gaze was now on young Master Yu. Young Master Yu's body seemed to be trembling as if he was suppressing an endless amount of anger. Feeling everyone's gaze on him, he finally opened his mouth. "You have truly angered me. Today, I will make you beg for death." As his voice fell, he suddenly stretched his right hand towards his dantian. Immediately, a spiritual light flashed at the tip of his finger, and inscriptions appeared one after another. Then, they distorted and dissipated in the air. I have been practicing this totem C condensing technique for a full year. I didn't expect that I would have to make a move today. Because of you, my efforts this year have been in vain. I will make you pay for all of this with pain. Young Master Yu's killing intent was awe-inspiring. When the surrounding people heard this, they suddenly understood. No wonder the originally famous young Master Yu had been extremely low-key for the past year. It turned out that he had been practicing this technique. At this moment, the technique was broken, and everyone also noticed the changes in young Master Yu. His body seemed to be condensed with a light green wave, and the source of the brilliance was his dantian. However, this brilliance seemed to be dissipating at every moment. Long Chen looked at the bloody sword in his hand and said coldly, "If you had made a move earlier, they wouldn't have died in vain. I wouldn't have wasted so much time just to kill you." Long Chen didn't have a good impression of this young Master Yu, especially the last few people who fought against Long Chen. They clearly didn't dare to fight against Long Chen, but young Master Yu seemed to have grasped some of their weaknesses, which was why they fought with their lives. As Long Chen's voice fell, young Master Yu suddenly stepped forward. The turbulent spiritual power in his dantian swept out in all directions. Many experts around saw through his cultivation at a glance. He was at the 4th level of the Divine Transformation Realm. The 4th level of the Divine Transformation Realm was equivalent to stepping into the middle level of the Divine Transformation Realm. This kind of cultivation was very different from an ordinary 3rd level of the Divine Transformation Realm. Moreover, under the support of the faint light wave, he was probably at the peak of the 4th level of the Divine Transformation Realm, or even stronger. He probably practiced this secret technique to break through the 4th level of the Divine Transformation Realm and step into the 5th level. Chapter 150. Third on the heaven list, black chi rose from the black vein saber, and young Master Jade's body flickered with green light. As the saber slashed down, the surroundings shook. The boundless pressure made it hard for them to breathe. Everyone retreated one after another. Long Chen's expression did not change when he saw this. In the face of such a powerful attack, he did not choose to retreat. Instead, he charged forward. Although his current strength was still in the spirit martial realm, he had the strength to crush the 4th level of the Divine Transformation Realm. After discovering the magical use of Yuanli, he could even fight Xie Jiushan. He really didn't put this so-called young Master Yu in his eyes. Sword intent, 5 elements slash. As Chang Chen shouted, the long sword in his hand danced and created a boundless sword curtain. The 5-colored brilliance was sometimes as swift as the wind and sometimes as fast as lightning. The most terrifying thing within it was an almost invisible and colorless fine origin energy. If one were to observe it carefully, one would notice that even the air was distorted because of it. At the instant when their attacks collided, young Master Jade's countenance drastically changed. His long saber came to an abrupt halt as the sword light was instantly torn apart. How is this possible? Young Master Yu retreated in a panic. The vast and mighty green radiance around him seemed to have been devoured in an instant. It dissipated inch by inch and receded towards his feet like a tide. This sword strike caused countless people in the surroundings to be inexplicably shocked, and they cried out loudly. How could this be? What is this person's cultivation level? He was actually hiding his strength. If he had attacked like this just now, who would have been able to withstand 3 moves from him? Is the power of the fusion of 5 sword intents really so terrifying? He knocked young Master Yu back with 1 strike. Young Master Yu actually suffered a loss in 1 strike. Could it be that this person really has the strength to challenge the top 3 of the heaven leaderboard? Countless cries of surprise and suspicions rose and fell one after another. Long Chen's sword strike that repelled young Master Yu could be said to be universally shocking. Everyone originally thought that Long Chen would not be a match for young Noble Jade. Who would have thought that young Noble Jade would be defeated with just 1 sword strike? This was simply inconceivable. President Yang, who was not far behind young Master Yu, had an ashen complexion. Looking at the strange gazes of the Pill Tower's elders, he felt a burning pain on his face. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, young Master Yu's complexion was the same. He did not expect Long Chen's sword strike to break the secret technique that he had cultivated for a year. Although this secret technique was not completed yet, it could increase one's strength by 30% when used. At this moment, it was like a silk net that could not withstand a single blow from Long Chen. Young master you to cultivate to break the young master to use, and young master you, and young master, let's. Seeing young master you step forward again, the crowd nodded. Perhaps what young master you said was true. It wasn't that Long Chen was too strong, but that something was wrong with him. Falling young master Jade seemed to want to save face. Regardless of whether it was the speed or the power of the long saber, it surpassed his previous attack in a short period of time. The saber radiance that filled the sky was at least 30 meters long. The momentum was terrifying. It was as if countless mountains were falling on Long Chen. A cold smile flashed across Long Chen's lips. He kept waving the long sword in his hand and his feet were as fast as lightning. He was strolling leisurely. 10 breaths, 20 breaths, 100 breaths, in the blink of an eye, 100 moves had passed. Young Master Yu's complexion became more and more unsightly. His originally confident and fierce eyes were filled with fear. Within 100 moves, he did not even touch the corner of Long Chen's clothes. Every move was easily blocked by Long Chen. It was as if young Master Yu was a child playing in front of Long Chen. The feeling of powerlessness made young Master Yu tremble. Young Master Yu's 6th grade King Tier martial skill was full of flaws in front of Long Chen. It was a terrifying scene. Is this all you have? Didn't you say that you would make me wish I was dead? Long Chen sneered. His figure suddenly flashed, and he stepped on young Master Yu's shoulder from above. Plop! Young Master Yu wanted to use the spiritual power in his dantian to resist, but in the next moment, he realized that the sea of qi in his dantian was full of holes. Young Master Yu's body landed on the ground and Long Chen continued to step on his body. Long Chen's body was like a mountain. Young Master Yu roared and wanted to stand up, but he realized that he could not move at all. Young Master Yu, who was ranked 10th on the heaven leaderboard, was being stepped on and lost all his dignity. The spectators were unable to accept this scene. Who would have thought that a young man ranked 43rd on the heaven leaderboard in the Black Dragon Empire could kill more than 10 people in one day? Furthermore, he defeated young Master Yu and became one of the top 10 on the heaven leaderboard. When did the Black Dragon Empire have such an abnormal person? It's too scary. Young Master Yu was too arrogant. He has lost today. How old is this guy? It seems that he will be famous in the immortal ascension path. Do you think this guy can challenge the top 3 on the heaven leaderboard? I didn't believe it at first, but now I am not so sure. You are thinking too much. Although young Master Yu is ranked 10th on the heaven leaderboard, it is said that he could not even take one move from the Black Widow and almost lost his life. Under Long Chen's feet, young Master Yu's mouth was bleeding. His eyes were bloodshot as he growled, I have lost. Let me go. Otherwise, you will not be able to leave my Daqian Imperial City today. Hearing this, Long Chen's feet did not move. Instead, he exerted more force and said, I think you have not understood your current situation. I do not have the heart of a bodhisattva towards an opponent who wants to kill me and wants to trample me to death. Just as Long Chen finished speaking, the crowd that was as dense as an ant's nest opened up a path big enough for 3 people to pass through. At the same time, there were countless exclamations coming from all directions. A demonic woman with disheveled hair and purple eyes walked over slowly. She was dressed in a black veil and her eyes were fixed on Long Chen from afar. Her eyes were filled with ridicule. 3rd on the heaven leaderboard, Black Widow. Oh my god, he really attracted the Black Widow who is ranked 3rd on the heaven leaderboard. Is he really going to fight with Black Widow? I don't think so. Since this person has already reached the 10th on the heaven leaderboard, why would he risk his life? Long Chen's eyes gradually moved from young Master Yu to the woman in the black veil. The moment had finally arrived. The first of the top 3 on the heaven leaderboard had appeared. Save me, Master. At this moment, who would have thought that young Master Yu would actually shout at the woman? The word master made countless people's jaws drop. Even Long Chen could not help but frown. This guy was ranked 10th on the heaven leaderboard, how could he be so spineless? Chapter 151. Black Widow in rage on the streets. The sky gradually darkened. The shadow behind the woman in black seemed to be pulled by the setting sun. Under the fluttering black veil, it looked like a black spider baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Her words sent chills down everyone's spines. It was rumored on the streets that the Black Widow, 3rd on the heaven list, ate flesh and blood for food. It seemed that the rumors were not groundless. Long Chen's face sank. Consuming flesh and blood was an evil art. How could the Black Widow be so unscrupulous? Was she not afraid that the Deqian Empire would capture her? However, Long Chen was too lazy to care about the Deqian Empire's business. He came here today for the God Transformation Pills. If I'm not wrong, your actions today in forcing me and the other two top 3 on the heaven list to appear is because you want the God Transformation Pills in our hands, right? The Black Widow's eyes flashed as she chuckled. Long Chen frowned. This Black Widow was not a kind person. Long Chen was not naive enough to think that he could exchange for the God Transformation Pills from her. He was already prepared for a big battle. With his cultivation, the Black Widow was not afraid at all. He could defeat her and take her storage bag to obtain the God Transformation Pills. No wonder this person set up the arena again and fought so many people alone to draw out the top 3 on the heaven list. So it was for the God Transformation Pills. That's not strange. There have long been rumors that the 3 of them obtained many spirit transformation pills by chance a year ago. In the past year, there have been a few people who tried to buy them from them, but in the end, they all failed. The God Transformation Pills are priceless. So this is what this kid is thinking. It seems that he is not wholeheartedly trying to challenge the top 3. Everyone discussed and immediately understood the purpose of Long Chen's visit. The God Transformation Pills were extremely important to Long Chen. Once he obtained enough God Transformation Pills, he would be able to enter the God Transformation realm in a short period of time. At that time, he would be able to open the mysterious place in his sea of consciousness and obtain the number 1 on the Bloodline Azure Sky list, the Heavenly Dragon's Vein. Long Chen was just about to speak when he saw the Black Widow's black gauze move slightly. In an instant, the black needles fell down like rain. Long Chen subconsciously retreated rapidly, barely dodging the attack. Unfortunately, young Master Yu, who was under his feet, was not so lucky. A miserable shriek rang out in the next moment. When everyone turned around, he was lifted up by the Black Widow. The spirit transforming pill. This thing is expensive, but it is really useless to me. However, I am very interested in you. Since you want it so much, although Black Widow said that, she forcefully stuffed the 3 pills into young Master Yu's mouth. Woo-woo, young Master Yu's pupils dilated and his face was filled with fear. The spiritual power of the 3 spirit-transforming pills instantly spread out in his body like a monstrous wave, filling his entire chest and abdomen like a rubber ball. Seeing this scene, Long Chen's face was unprecedentedly gloomy. This woman in front of him was simply a madwoman. The God Transformation Pill was a king-grade pill, and ordinary people would need at least a few days to half a month to completely digest it. She was simply trying to make young Master Yu choke to death. Bang! A terrifying scene finally happened. Young Master Yu's body exploded, and his flesh and blood splattered all over the ground. The screams of women came from all directions, and many of them even bent over and vomited. Even some of the burly men turned their heads away with pale faces. Hey, I don't have any more spirit transforming pills now. What a pity. Black Widow laughed so hard that she rocked back and forth. Her shrill voice made people's scalps tingle. Long Chen looked at the bloodstains on his clothes and coldly stared at the crazy woman in front of him. He said in a deep voice, "No matter, there are still 2 people with spirit transforming pills. However, perhaps my method was wrong. No one knew what Longchen meant by that. He turned into a series of afterimages, and with the horned dragon sword in his hand, he appeared beside Black Widow in the next moment. The sword was like a river of stars, and it fell like lightning and thunder. No one expected Longchen to directly attack Black Widow, who was ranked 3rd on the heaven list. Ka. Black Widow's purplish-black spirit aura soared into the sky, and the image of a black spider appeared around her. It was strange and unpredictable. In particular, her messy long hair expanded in the wind, and blocked Longchen's sword. When the two collided, sparks flew, and an ear-piercing roar sounded. Interesting, this is really interesting. Black Widow laughed like a crazy woman. You finally can't hold it in. When you are full of fear, your blood will be even more tempting, ha. Longchen snorted and said coldly, it's just some kind of symbiotic spirit energy. Turning yourself into something neither human nor ghost, it's a crooked way. Longchen's sword became faster and faster, and it became more and more fierce. When he said this, Black Widow's laughter stopped abruptly, and her crazy face became gloomy. She defended against Longchen's attack and replied, you actually know about symbiotic spirit energy. Longchen didn't comment. The reason why Black Widow was like this was related to the soul of a black spider residing in his dantian. Therefore, her spirit energy and personality were completely changed. Longchen had seen this kind of technique in his previous life, but he always disdained to practice it. Flame sword, soul suppressing. A ray of Li fire sword essence soared into the sky from the hornless dragon sword. As Longchen's voice fell, the image of a fire dragon faintly appeared. Chi-la-la. The hard black hair wrapped around Longchen's sword suddenly began to fall off, and turned into charred ashes. At the same time, there was a surge of spirit energy hidden in each of his sword moves. Flame sword, soul suppressing. This sword skill was of the 8th grade of the king level. In terms of attack power, it wasn't the strongest. Even in his previous life, Longchen didn't cultivate this sword skill to the stage of perfection, but at this moment, it had an unprecedented effect. This was because the soul-suppressing sword skill could be used directly on spirits. As expected, as Longchen's sword fell, the black spider's spirit energy surrounding Black Widow's body began to waver. Using his divine sense, Longchen could even clearly feel the roar of the black spider's soul in her dantian. What kind of sword skill is this? Black Widow's face was completely distorted. The purple lines on her face seemed to be alive, and the lines of her eyes seemed to suddenly open. It was extremely terrifying. I'm going to kill you. Black Widow seemed to feel the pain of the symbiotic black spider's soul in her dantian, and crazily roared. One after another, pitch-black scales began to form around her body. The purple lines on her face completely opened, and there were actually scarlet eyes. This terrifying scene caused screams to come from all directions. Chapter 152. Determined to win. Black Widow, 3rd on the heaven leaderboard. Her symbiotic spirit made her look like a half-human half-beast. Especially the eyes on her cheeks, which made people shudder. At the same time, her body was covered in terrifying black scales, with layers of sharp spikes. 8 4-segmented limbs grew out of her back, each of them as sharp as a sword. When they landed on the ground, they cut several inches into it. Longchen coldly snorted, thinking that the Black Widow had cultivated this technique to such a degree that she was no longer a living person. Go to hell, in spider strangulation. The Black Widow rapidly pounced toward Longchen. A long whip appeared in her hand. Spirit light surged on the whip, causing the air to explode. What caused one's heart to palpitate the most was the dark green liquid that constantly dripped from it. The liquid fell on the ground and emitted bursts of black smoke, strongly corroding the ground. Just as she attacked Longchen, a few drops of liquid were spilled and fell into the crowd, causing the crowd to riot. 2 to 3 spirit martial realm cultivators cried out in pain and turned into a pool of blood. Even the 2 divine transformation realm cultivators were the same. the Black Widow held the long whip and charged at Long Chen. The 8 limbs behind her fell like a storm. For a moment, Long Chen seemed to be wrapped in a huge black shadow, and the sound of metal clanging could be heard. Quickly retreat, I don't want to die. How can this be? I'm at the 2nd level of the divine transformation realm, I can't die, Quickly retreat, if this goes on, we'll all be poisoned to death. This Black Widow is simply a monster, a lunatic. More and more people were killed by the spilled poison, and the surrounding people frantically retreated. There was not a single person within 10,000 meters of the street. The Black Widow's reputation of being in the top 3 of the Heaven leaderboard was not just in name. Soon, Long Chen's figure was completely submerged in the black shadow, and the ground of the battlefield was completely corroded by the black smoke. President Yang, who had retreated far away, saw such a terrifying scene and became cold. This Black Widow is indeed worthy of being ranked 3rd on the heavenly leaderboard. Even someone in the late stage of the divine transformation realm would be exhausted from dealing with such a concentrated attack. I'm afraid that Long Chen is about to die at this moment. 3rd place on the heaven ranking, there really aren't any ordinary people. This Black Widow is so strong, yet she's only ranked 3rd. Just how strong are the Wind Marquis and Jianshi San? For a time, everyone in the surroundings sighed endlessly. In their hearts, they thought that today's battle had already come to an end. Long Chen's continuous advancement from 43rd place to 10th place on the heaven leaderboard had shocked everyone. However, it seemed that it was only a matter of time before he died at the hands of the Black Widow. Seeing that Black Widow's attacks were gradually slowing down, everyone thought that he might not be able to withstand the poison. Bang! However, when the 8 black blade-like limbs stopped, everyone realized that Long Chen was still completely unharmed. Today, if you don't obtain the divine transformation pill, even if you're ranked 1st on the heavenly leaderboard, only death awaits you. Long Chen's voice was like thunder as it spread out in all directions. A killing intent spread out in all directions. With Long Chen's explosive roar, he stepped on the 7-star steps and charged behind the Black Widow. His long sword slashed out, slashing at the 8 limbs. Black blood splattered in all directions and a boundless killing intent appeared under his sword. This. How is this possible? You actually destroyed my Dantian without me knowing and even destroyed my spirit. The Black Widow's face completely distorted at this moment. The densely packed eyes on her face gradually became lifeless. She never thought that not only would Long Chen be able to completely defend against her attack, he would even cause her Dantian to be riddled with holes without her even realizing it. What was that tiny wisp of elemental energy? Why did it have this kind of power? Bang, bang, bang. Long Chen sent the Black Widow flying with a single slash. At this moment, the 8 limbs behind her had all been broken and the wounds were terrifying. The densely packed attacks bombarded Black Widow's body like raindrops. Long Chen displayed an unprecedented combat power. The entire ground, with Black Widow as the center, instantly caved in. The ground within dozens of meters cracked and collapsed inch by inch. The people in all directions were shocked speechless. The sky full of sword rain made everyone tremble in fear. Big Dry Empire, Eastern City, Vast Heaven Restaurant. A cold man with a long sword on his back, wearing hemp clothes, stood in front of the window. His sharp brows were deeply knit as he looked at the array outside. It was Long Chen's figure. Wind Marquis, this little brat is too arrogant. The cold man said in a deep voice. Not far away from him, a green-clothed man slowly walked over when he heard this. He stared at Long Chen who was on the projection and said, I think his sword technique is probably not inferior to yours. He used at least 5 king stage martial skills in this battle, and each of them has reached the transformation stage. This person is not simple. Humph. Jianshi-san gave a cold snort but did not say anything. He agreed with what the Wind Marquis said, but his eyes were filled with battle intent as if he wanted to compete with Long Chen. 13. I know you want to compete with this person, but this is not the time. Right now, the most important thing for us is the immortal ascension path. Before that, both you and I must reach the 6th level of the soul transformation realm. The Wind Marquis stared at Longchen in the image and said thoughtfully. Without waiting for Jianshi-san to reply, the Wind Marquis lightly said, "Don't worry. With this person's strength, we will definitely meet again on the immortal ascension path. You won't have to wait too long for your battle with him. When the time comes, I also want to meet him personally. It seems like this person has not used his full strength yet. This person has already said that he is determined to obtain the soul transformation pill. If we don't show ourselves, he will think that we are afraid of him." Jianshi-san said in a cold voice. The Wind Marquis shook his head again and said, "These are my remaining 3 soul transformation pills. You should also have 3 in your hands. These things are already useless to us, so just give them to him. You can use this chance to test his strength, but remember, don't fight to the death." Jianshi-san gave a cold smile and his eyes were filled with battle intent. He took the soul transformation pill and rushed out. At this moment, Longchen was surrounded by stormy waves. The name of Longchen resounded throughout the entire Deqian dynasty. A youth ranked 43rd on the heaven ranking had killed over 10 people in a single day. He had defeated the Black Widow and become 3rd on the heaven ranking. This was simply a miracle that had never happened before in the heaven ranking. Everyone looked at the bottomless pit in the middle of the street and knew that the Black Widow was already dead. Longchen stood in the middle of the street and was the center of attention, but he did not have any intention of leaving. The soul transformation pill, this person is actually this obsessed with the soul transformation pill. Could it be that he has not condensed his Qi and stepped into the soul transformation realm? Impossible. This person is this strong, so he must have already stepped into the soul transformation realm. He should be here to get the soul transformation pill for someone else. After all, the immortal ascension path is imminent. This person is definitely not in the spiritual martial realm. However, looking at how little spiritual energy he uses, even his sword glows are very weak. Could it be that he has cultivated some kind of special technique? While everyone was discussing, a youth wearing hemp clothes with long hair fluttering in the wind and carrying a long sword on his back appeared in the sky above everyone. 2nd on the heaven ranking, you're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.